Chapter 477. Chapter 476. The Truths Already Here. Brother Lu's full name was Lu Changshi. He was handsome, had a good family background, and was rich. It was a description of someone like Lu Changshi, who was envied and hated by most people. The Lu family was considered a rich and prosperous family in Xi'an. There were many officials and politicians, and many people in academia. However, Lu Changshi's family was the only one in business. Lu Changshi's grandfather started his business by selling salt. At that time, his family was the richest. The other two granduncles and uncles took different paths. However, the Lu family paid special attention to the relationship between brothers. So Lu Changshi's grandfather had been secretly supporting the other two brothers, especially the eldest granduncle who took the revolutionary route. Of course, he also secretly supported the revolutionary cause. The Lu family was originally a family of scholars, but the three brothers eventually took different paths. The eldest joined the revolution, the second sold salt and did business, and the third continued to teach and educate people. During the 10 years of turmoil, Lu Changshi's grandfather suffered a lot. If it wasn't for the secret help of the eldest granduncle, he probably wouldn't have survived. After the society stabilized, Lu Changshi's grandfather continued to do business again. With the help of the eldest granduncle and the resources left by the Lu family for the revolution, the business became more and more successful. However, the eldest granduncle and uncles had children. Lu Changshi's grandfather only had his father. When it came to his generation, things were better. Other than him, he had two older sisters. Therefore, Lu Changshi had been doted on since he was young. He had never suffered. His grandfather and father treated him like a treasure. He also had two older sisters. In addition, the uncles on the eldest granduncle and uncle's side also doted on him. This kid was really blessed by several lifetimes. Most of the children of the eldest granduncle and uncles joined the army, politics, and academia. Lu Changshi's father, and he could only inherit the family business to maintain the Lu family's resources in this branch. After all, they often had to support these collateral relatives. The Lu family exploded in the last 10 years. Because one of the uncles on the eldest granduncle's side had a meteoric career, the other uncles also went further and further. Therefore, the Lu family's business grew bigger and bigger. However, in recent years, the Lu family gradually kept a low profile. After all, they couldn't affect the future of those uncles. This was the future and foundation of the Lu family. Lu Changshi had been a smart person since he was a child. He made many friends with his brothers and sisters. He knew how to conduct himself and kept a low profile, so he had many friends from all walks of life. However, the Lu family was very strict. In addition, he had been taught a lot by those uncles, so he began to settle down after taking over the family business. The Lu family and the Qin family did not have much contact. However, Lu Changshi's father had a good relationship with Qin Chang'an. Every time Lu Changshi went to Beijing, he would visit Qin Chang'an. As a result, many businesses of the Qin family in Shaanxi were handed over to the Lu family. Besides, the Lu family had a stake in many projects. After they arrived in Xi'an Changxi, Tian, Changxi, he could be trusted. Looking for Lu Changxi this time was not like looking for Chu Fan in Ningbo last time. The status of the two people was totally different. Moreover, Lu Changxi could provide more help for him. Lu and Lu Chang. Lu Changxi Qin Sheng understood what Lu Changxi meant. He could ask whoever he wanted to help. However, the Lu family wouldn't get involved in this matter directly, because they didn't want to offend too many people. After all, the Lu family was rooted in this land, which would cause a lot of trouble. After Qin Sheng heard what he said, he could understand it. It was comfortable to see each other so frankly. Consequently, Qin Sheng said, "Brother Lu, I understand what you mean. After all, you know them and live under the same roof. Consequently, it is inappropriate for you to help them directly. In fact, I don't want you to help me too much. I just need you to do some trivial things." Lu Changxi said in a low voice, "Qin Sheng, I know what you mean. You should do your business. If they play dirty, I won't sit back and do nothing." Qin Sheng smiled and said, "Thank you, Brother Lu. You are welcome. We are family," Lu Changshi said, holding up his glass. After a while, Lu Changshi said curiously, "Qin Sheng, I heard that you grew up in Xin. I was shocked when Ran Ran told me. To be honest, I didn't know that Ran Ran had a brother. Later, I understood." Qin Sheng explained, "It's just some trivial things in our family. Let's not talk about it. When I was in Xin, I was raised by the Lin family. That's why I came back this time." Lu Changshi said thoughtfully, "Then I understand. You know how to repay kindness. Qin Sheng, you are a man. Let me drink to you." The meeting went on with jokes and trivial things. The atmosphere was quite harmonious. After all, they had wine. After that, they put their arms around each other's shoulders and went out. They didn't regret not meeting each other earlier, but just had the same status. Qin Sheng got something, which was to ensure that there would be no big accidents in Xian. Of course, he didn't worry about himself, but he was afraid that Xin and Annie Wong would be threatened. Lu Changshi also got something. The relationship between the Lu family and the Qin family must be maintained. Lu Changshi had already made contact with Qin Sheng, the future partner of the Qin family. At least, he was ahead of others. Qin Sheng watched Lu Changshi get in the car and leave. Chang Baji and Hao Lei sent him to Jindi Furong Shurjia. When he came back, Annie Wong and Xin were still waiting for him. Qin Sheng chatted with Annie Wong for a while. Wang Li first asked about Qin Sheng's father's health. Qin Sheng answered them one by one and said that he had gone to Shanghai to see his grandmother and small aunt. His grandmother was 90 years old now. Then Wang Li asked about Qin Sheng's relationship. Qin Sheng didn't hide it. He said that everything was fine with Lin Su. Lin Su was helping her sister deal with the company's affairs in Shanghai. When she was done, he would take her back to Xi'an. Then Wang Li asked Qin Sheng when he planned to get married. Qin Sheng first said that he was not in a hurry. Then he said that he needed to discuss with his family and Lin Su. Except for the heavy smog in winter, the weather in Xi'an was not bad in other seasons. After all, the Great Qin Mountain was a natural oxygen bar. It was spring and the weather was good. Hao Lei drove Chang Baji and Qin Sheng along Meridian Avenue to the south. "Lao Chang, it seems that this is your first time back to Xi'an since you left the year before last, right?" Qin Sheng asked casually. Chang Baji and Qin Sheng were more familiar with Meridian Avenue than anyone else. When he returned to Xi'an, Chang Baji didn't have many feelings. After all, he was too familiar with this land. It was just that there were not many changes in less than 2 years. Sort of, Chang Baji said faintly. Qin Sheng didn't want to ask Chang Baji about his feelings and so on. He just replied, "So you don't plan to go back to see the old ancestor?" Chang Baji shook his head and said, "After I went to Shanghai, my master asked someone to tell me that the next time I see him will be the day he dies. So I won't go." Chang Baji could ignore anyone's words, but he dared not disobey his master's words. This was also the reason why his master asked him to go to Shanghai to assist Qin Sheng. Chang Baji quit his job in Xi'an without hesitation and went to Shanghai the next day. "I see," Qin Sheng said faintly. He could understand the old ancestor's temper. Chang Baji was already considered good. After some disciples left, the old ancestor never planned to see them again. In the old ancestor's words, they would never cross paths again. When they arrived at the foot of the Zhongnan Mountains, where old Master Qin was buried, an Audi Q7 was parked on the side of the remote dirt road. This dirt road was the only way to old Master Qin's grave. Qin Sheng didn't think much of it. He thought it was some tourists who came for a walk in spring. After all, there were many tourists in Zhongnan Mountains. However, when they were about to reach the old master's grave, they found 2 strange women standing there. Qin Sheng could not help but frown slightly. After all, there were not many people who knew that his grandfather was buried here. How did these 2 women know about it? Qin Sheng subconsciously stopped. Hao Lei frowned and asked, "Lao Qin, do you know them?" Qin Sheng didn't need to think at all to reply, "No." "Then who are they?" Hao Lei became more and more curious. It seemed that the Audi Q7 should have been driven here by the mother and daughter. Obviously, it was not a chance encounter. After all, they brought flowers and offerings. Qin Sheng said faintly, "Let's take a look first." The mother and daughter at old Master Qin's grave were none other than Zhao Anji and her daughter, who had come back from Canada. They met Qin Chang'an after meeting with their mother's family yesterday. Last night, they flew from Beijing to Xi'an overnight. This morning, they came to pay their respects to old Master Qin. Zhao Anji didn't know how to comment on this father-in-law. In other words, she was not qualified to comment on old Master Qin at all. Others didn't know about old Master Qin's legendary life. She didn't dare to say that she knew everything, but she knew more than most people. "Mom, is my grandfather buried here?" Yaya, who was standing next to Zhao Anji, asked softly. She didn't know why. Although she had never seen this grandfather, when she stood here, her heart was very heavy. It seemed that she had been with her grandfather for many years. Maybe this was family. It was not that Yaya had never seen such a grave before. When she returned to the country in the past, she followed her mother to sweep the graves of her grandparents, so Yaya was already used to it. Of course, she also had some understanding of Chinese culture. Today, Yaya obviously dressed up carefully. Her shoulder-length hair was matched with a black suit. She looked very cold and was half a head taller than Zhao Anji. Zhao Anji thought for a moment and replied, "Well, this is your grandfather, my father-in-law, the spiritual pillar of our Qin family." Zhao Anji hated Qin Changxing, but she didn't hate old Master Qin at all. She only complained a little, but she respected this old man from the bottom of her heart. Without him, there would be no Qin family today. Why is Grandpa buried here instead of in Beijing? Yaya asked confusedly. Her big eyes were full of curiosity. Zhao Anji stared at the chirping bird on the grave, which she couldn't name. She chuckled and said, "How many people can understand your grandfather's life? Your father doesn't understand, and neither does your uncle. Maybe your brother knows a little. After all, he spent the longest time with your grandfather." "Then when can I see my brother and sister?" Yaya asked eagerly. Zhao Anji had long noticed Qin Sheng and the others not far away. After all, Qin Chang'an had told her that Qin Sheng had also returned to Xi'an yesterday. This morning, he would definitely come back to pay his respects to old Master Qin. That was why Zhao Anji was waiting here. Chapter 478. I want to talk to her although Yaya grew up in Canada. Zhao Anji raised her according to the traditional culture of China. Zhao Anji knew that Yaya would come back sooner or later, and she would not let Yaya stay abroad. After all, she ran away from Canada when she was pregnant, just like Qin Changxing, to avoid the trifles of the secular world. In order to protect this unborn daughter, after all, this was an extension of her and Qin Changxing's bloodline. Zhao Anji had an advantage that even Qin Chang'an could not compare with. That was, she knew how to maintain the relationship between relatives. For example, Zhao Anji had been maintaining the relationship with her mother-in-law's maiden family. Qin Chang'an had long broken contact with them, but she had a close relationship with them. This was Qin Chang'an's character. It was not strange that he could break contact with the Zhu family. Zhao Anji was the opposite. Therefore, when she was in Canada, Zhao Anji took the initiative to let Yaya get in touch with the children of relatives, letting her know the importance of blood relations and so on. However, Yaya had never known that she had a cousin who was closer to her. After all, they were the brothers and sisters of the Qin family. Later, Yaya learned that she had an uncle, and her relationship with this uncle grew closer and closer. Later, she learned that she had a cousin, but her mother had never let her get in touch with her. Some time ago, she learned that she had a cousin, and Yaya became even happier and more excited. Therefore, when her mother told her that she could see her brother and sister this time, Yaya was especially looking forward to meeting them. However, Yaya did not expect to meet them in such a situation. She thought that they must be at home in Beijing or somewhere else, but she did not expect to meet them in front of the grave of her grandfather, whom she had never met. Following her mother's gaze, Yaya saw Qin Sheng and the others standing not far away. Of course, Yaya knew that her mother meant that one of them was her brother. However, Yaya had never seen her brother before, let alone seen a picture of him. So, she did not know which of the three men was the brother she wanted to see. "Mom, which one is my brother?" Yaya asked expectantly. Zhao Anji deliberately teased. The one who looks more like your uncle is your brother. Yaya pouted with slight dissatisfaction. After all, Qin Sheng and the others were still some distance away. However, Yaya still looked ahead and tried hard to recognize her brother. At this time, Qin Sheng was sure that he didn't know these two strange women. However, these two strange women definitely knew him and should be related to the Qin family. Otherwise, they wouldn't come to pay their respects to his grandfather. Moreover, from whom could they know that his grandfather was buried in this place? After thinking about these things, Qin Sheng walked over slowly and was ready to greet these two strange women. After all, they were here to worship his grandfather. As the only grandson of the old master, he should come out and greet them. When Qin Sheng walked towards Zhao, Anji, and Yaya, both of them were looking at Qin Sheng. At this time, Yaya had already recognized who was her brother. Not to mention that Qin Sheng was walking at the front, the man looked like her uncle. Therefore, when Qin Sheng walked over, before he could ask about the identity of these two strange women, the slightly younger beauty in front of him suddenly hugged him very excitedly and shouted, "Brother!" Qin Sheng was dumbfounded. Behind him, Chang Baji and Hao Lei were even more puzzled. What was going on? Since when did Qin Sheng have a younger sister? They knew that Qin Sheng had a biological elder sister and a biological younger sister like Xin, but they really did not know where Qin Sheng had gotten a younger sister. Moreover, they obviously knew that Qin Sheng did not know these two beauties. Yaya had been growing up abroad. Zhao Anji was also very protective of her, so she was not scheming. Her heart was extremely pure and clean. She was really a little excited, so she didn't think whether this brother knew her or not. She thought that her brother knew her. Qin Sheng didn't deny that Yaya was very beautiful, and she gave him an inexplicable sense of kinship. If it was in the past, Qin Sheng might be a little complacent, but he was really confused now. Therefore, Qin Sheng pushed Yaya away awkwardly and asked with a puzzled face, "You are?" Qin Sheng's, "You are" directly extinguished all of Yaya's enthusiasm like a basin of cold water. The smile on Yaya's face disappeared instantly. She was very dissatisfied and asked, "Brother, don't you know me? I'm Yaya, your sister." Qin Sheng was a little more confused. What the hell? Did he recognize the wrong grave? No, there was only one grave of his grandfather here. Moreover, no one would bury their relatives here. Therefore, Qin Sheng could only bite the bullet and said, "Beauty, I'm really sorry. I don't seem to know you." Qin Sheng's words hit Yaya even more. Yaya felt so wrong that she was about to cry. She said to Zhao Anji pitifully, "Mom, brother doesn't know me." After hearing the beauty in front of him call her mom, Qin Sheng and the others knew that they were a pair of mother and daughter. No wonder their temperament was so similar. Zhao Anji was very funny. She touched Yaya's hair and said, "Yaya, don't worry. Take your time. You scared your brother." After Qin Sheng knew that the mother and daughter were no threat, he said very politely, "Auntie, I really don't know you, but this is my grandfather's grave." "So you are?" Zhao Anji smiled faintly and said, "This is your grandfather's grave, and also her grandfather's grave." This sentence made Qin Sheng frown subconsciously. What did it mean? Obviously, this auntie knew that this was his grandfather's grave, but what did the last sentence mean? After all, Qin Sheng did not know that he had an uncle who was a monk in Wutai Mountain. Before Qin Sheng could figure out, Zhao Anji took the initiative to say with a smile, "Sheng, you should call me Aunt." Aunt? Qin Sheng became more and more confused. From Qin Sheng's expression, Zhao Anji knew what was going on. Therefore, she chuckled and said, "Sheng, it seems that your father has not told you some past stories of our Qin family, right? So you don't know that you have an uncle who is a monk in Wutai Mountain, an aunt in Canada, and a cousin, right?" After Zhao Anji's explanation, although Qin Sheng kind of understood what was going on, he had more doubts in his heart. He did not respond to Zhao Anji's words. Instead, he took out his mobile phone, walked aside, and directly called his sister. He had to know what was going on. This information was a bit too much. In Qin Ran's office in Shanghai, Wuhan and Lin Su were reporting the work progress to Qin Ran. During this period, although everyone had been working overtime every day, The work progress and results were quite satisfactory. At least one-third of the company's overseas projects had been evaluated. When Qin Ran's mobile phone rang, she took a look at the name of the caller and looked at Lin Su subconsciously. Then she stopped Wuhan and said, "Wuhan, go to Mr. Li and get the things I want. By the way, ask Mr. Li about the progress. Don't delay our work." Wuhan did not think much about it. Anyway, Lin Su was here, and she knew the work progressed very well. After Wuhan left, Qin Ran picked up the phone and said, "Qin Sheng, what's wrong? Did something happen in Xi'an?" Hearing Qin Sheng's name, Lin Su understood why Qin Ran asked Wuhan to leave first. On the other side of the phone, Qin Sheng was eager to know the truth at the moment, so he did not joke with his sister. Instead, he said directly, "Sister, do we have an uncle who is a monk in Wutai Mountain, an aunt in Canada, and a pretty cousin in our family?" Qin Ran was very shocked. "How do you know all these? Who told you that?" It was because Qin Ran and the old man had talked about the past events of the Qin family seriously. She did not want Qin Sheng to know these trifles too early. Instead, she planned to tell him after Qin Sheng got used to his new identity and life completely. After all, if he knew these things, he would be under great pressure. Qin Sheng did not answer his sister's question. Instead, he continued to ask, "Sister, don't ask me how I know. Tell me first, is it true?" Qin Ran sighed and said, "Originally, I planned to let you know these things after a period of time. Unexpectedly, you know it in advance. Since you already know, I will not hide it from you. We do have an uncle who is a monk in Wutai Mountain and an aunt who is far away in Canada. However, we do not have a pretty cousin in our family, as you said, because our uncle and aunt don't have children." His sister's answer made Qin Sheng somewhat shocked and confused. He was shocked because it turned out that these things were actually true. He had an uncle and aunt. He was confused because his sister said that there was no cousin. His uncle and aunt didn't have children. Then what was going on? Were they lying to him? It was unlikely. Qin Sheng did not doubt his sister's words, because he felt that there was nothing that his sister did not know. If his sister said there was no such thing, then there must be no such thing. Qin Ran squinted and said, "Qin Sheng, now can you tell me how on earth you know this?" She felt that there must be something fishy about this. If someone deliberately told Qin Sheng these things, then they must have ulterior motives. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, "Sister, I came to pay my respects to my grandfather this morning. However, when I arrived at his grave, I met a strange pair of mother and daughter here. The middle-aged woman told me these things. She also called me Sheng, and told me that she was my aunt. The young and beautiful girl was my cousin." After Qin Sheng told her what had happened, it was Qin Ran's turn to be shocked. She exclaimed, "What?" Qin Ran analyzed this matter quickly, subconsciously. For example, how did this pair of mother and daughter know where her grandfather was buried? After all, only a few people knew about this. Someone must have told them. Secondly, it seemed that they had no reason to lie to Qin Sheng. After all, this kind of thing, as long as Qin Sheng made a phone call, he would know whether it was true or not. In that case, could it be that this middle-aged woman was really an aunt and that young and beautiful girl was really a cousin that even she did not know? After thinking it through, Qin Ran immediately said, "Qin Sheng, give the phone to that middle-aged woman. I want to talk to her." Qin Sheng replied softly, then walked quickly to Zhao Anji with the phone in his hand and said in a low voice, "My sister wants to talk to you." Zhao Anji smiled and took the phone. Then she laughed and said, Ran, what's wrong? Do you have other aunts?" Chapter 479. A misunderstanding. Just how many things had happened back then for such a huge change to occur that even now, many people in the Qin family still had misgivings? Qin Sheng definitely did not know. Qin Ran knew a little, but Qin Chang'an, Qin Changxing, and Zhao Anji definitely knew better than anyone else. Because of this, Qin Ran did not intend to tell Qin Sheng too much. After all, Qin Sheng had just returned to the Qin family, and what he knew was shocking enough. She was afraid that he would not be able to accept it if he knew more, so there was such a misunderstanding today. After hearing the familiar voice of the aunt, Qin Ran knew what the truth was. She did not expect that she had a cousin that she did not even know, which made her happy and confused. "Aunt, when did you come back? Why didn't you tell me in advance?" Qin Ran came to herself and said excitedly. Zhao Anji smiled and said, "I wanted to tell you, but I heard that you've been busy in Shanghai recently, so I did not disturb you. I was going to see you in Shanghai, but I did not expect to see Sheng'er today. Aunt, what on earth is going on? I'm a little confused. Why did you go to Xi'an?" Qin Ran was no less confused than Qin Sheng, so she could not wait to ask. Zhao Anji explained with a smile. "I just returned to Beijing yesterday. After meeting your father, I took Yaya to Xi'an to pay my respects to the old master. Some time ago, I heard from your father that the old master had passed away. Anyway, I am the daughter-in-law of the Qin family, and Yaya is also the granddaughter of the Qin family. It is reasonable for us to pay our respects. I did not expect to meet Sheng'er here, and I did not expect that you had not told him those things, so Sheng'er suspected our identity. As for Yaya, my daughter and your cousin, only your father knows. We used to protect her. Now that Sheng'er is back, it is time for her to integrate into the big family. Andy, is this all true? I really have a younger sister. This is so happy." After confirming that she had a cousin, Qin Ran was so excited that she could not speak coherently. In the past, she was lonely in the Qin family and did everything alone, so she did not want to stay in the Qin family. Now that her brother was back, she had a younger sister. What could make her happier than this? Zhao Anji looked at her aggrieved daughter and laughed. Yaya was even happier than you when she knew she had a brother and sister. Qin Ran said without hesitation, "Auntie, I'll go to Xi'an to see you and my younger sister." Zhao Anji quickly said, "You're already so big. Why are you still acting like a child? We will return to Beijing soon. If you have time, let's meet again in Beijing." "Okay, then I'll listen to you, Andy. I'll wait for you in Beijing," Qin Ran said with a smile. Then she said, "Annie, please give the phone back to him. I'll explain it to him." This middle-aged woman, who claimed to be his aunt, had been chatting with his sister for a long time. Qin Sheng had also heard their conversation. No matter how stupid he would know the real identity of the mother and daughter in front of him. They were really his aunt and cousin whom he did not know. Qin Sheng took the phone. His sister explained everything to him on the phone. Qin Sheng nodded silently, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. After hanging up the phone, Qin Sheng took a deep breath and faced Zhao Anji again. He bowed respectfully and politely and said, "Auntie, Sheng doesn't know about those things in the past. No one has told me about them, so I was a little presumptuous just now. I hope Annie can forgive me." Zhao Anji quickly held Qin Sheng and said, "Sheng'er, what are you doing? I already know. You don't have to be so polite. We are a family." Zhao Anji was full of hatred for Qin Changxing, but she was full of affection for Qin Chang'an's family. Not to mention her sincere admiration for Qin Chang'an. If it were not for Qin Chang'an's persistence and comeback, the Qin family might have disappeared in the long river of history. They would not have such a status today. Secondly, in the past, because she and Qin Changxing did not have children, she especially liked Qin Chang'an's son and daughter, especially the mischievous Qin Sheng. At that time, Zhao Anji always brought Qin Sheng back to their home and treated him as her own son. This was also one of the reasons why she could not wait to take Yaya back to China after Qin Chang'an told her that Qin Sheng had been found and returned to the Qin family. The misunderstanding was finally resolved. Of course, when the relatives saw each other, they naturally cried tears of joy. Zhao Anji's mood was not as calm as before. She held Qin Sheng's shoulder and was about to cry. "Sheng, let me take a good look at you. It has been more than 20 years. You have grown from a child to a handsome young man. I can't even recognize you." Everyone could understand Zhao Anji's mood. On the one hand, she knew why the old master had taken Qin Sheng away. On the other hand, she had not seen Qin Sheng for more than 20 years. Even the Zhu and Qin families felt that there was no hope for him in this lifetime, let alone her. Therefore, how could she not be happy when Qin Sheng returned to the Qin family? He was the future of the Qin family. Although it was the first time for Qin Sheng to see this aunt, he could feel the middle-aged woman's feelings for him. After all, He had experienced this when he saw his grandmother and his small aunt. Although he had long forgotten the scenes when he was with them when he was a child, this kind of affection from inside to outside still moved Qin Sheng a little. Aunt, Qin Sheng called her again sincerely. After all, Zhao Anji's state of mind was calm. It did not take long for her to return to normal. She wiped away her tears quietly and then walked to Qin Sheng with her daughter Yaya. Yaya, come here. This time your brother will definitely recognize you. Maybe Yaya was a little dissatisfied that Qin Sheng did not recognize her just now. She called out reluctantly, "Brother." Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. This beauty was quite childish. He had to comfort her. "Yaya, I'm sorry. It's not that I don't know you. I really didn't know that I have a sister. If I knew, you are such a beautiful and lovely sister. Which brother would not like you?" Hearing Qin Sheng's words, Yaya finally smiled a little. She said doubtfully, "Really? Really? I never lie, especially not to such a beautiful sister." Qin Sheng smiled and joked. Yaya immediately hugged Qin Sheng again happily and said, "Brother, I finally have a brother." Yaya's words reminded Qin Sheng of the scene when he had first met his sister. At that time, he had said in his heart, "I finally have a sister. I will not be alone in the future." Then, he thought of how much his sister loved him afterward. Qin Sheng could understand Yaya's feelings. Consequently, he could not help hugging Yaya and saying, "Well, I also have a sister. I will protect her in the future." Things like family love would not be diluted by time and distance. Although this was the first time Qin Sheng met Yaya, after confirming that she was his sister, Qin Sheng could immediately change roles. After the family recognized each other, there was always endless talking. Zhao Anji asked about Qin Sheng's situation in these years. Qin Sheng also asked about Zhao Anji and Yaya. He knew that Zhao Anji had been living in Canada with Yaya and had not returned to China many times. This time, she only returned after knowing that he returned to the Qin family. Qin Sheng was even more touched. Chang Baji and Hao Lei had taken the initiative to leave. It was not appropriate for them to be there when the family was reunited. Anyway, they were used to Qin Sheng's life. After all, the Qin family was really powerful. After talking about these trivial things, Qin Sheng was ready to worship his grandfather. He seemed to be in a good mood. After all, he suddenly had an aunt who loved him dearly and a beautiful and lovely sister. The Qin family would be more lively in the future. Zhao Anji had already worshipped with Yaya, so she stood by and watched Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng knelt on the ground, burned incense, poured wine, and kowtowed. He sighed and said, "Grandpa, I used to think that I was an orphan who was abandoned by my parents. I always felt that I was the most pitiful child in the world. But now I don't feel pitiful at all. On the contrary, I feel that I am happier than most people, because I have parents and a sister. Now, I have an aunt, an uncle, and a beautiful sister. Grandpa, I don't know why you took me away from Beijing, but I believe that you must have your reasons. Because I think that in this world, anyone can hurt me except you. Grandpa, don't worry. I won't let you down." Qin Sheng wanted to have a good talk with his grandpa, but it seemed that he still did not have the chance today. After all, the aunt and sister were still here. He could not let them wait for him here. Moreover, there were some things that Qin Sheng was embarrassed to say. After worshipping his grandfather, Qin Sheng left with the aunt and Yaya. The aunt wanted to go to the place where he and his grandfather used to live. So Qin Sheng drove the aunt's Q7 and took them to the old house. Chang Baji and Hao Lei drove behind them. Compared with the last time when he came back before the Spring Festival, the old house seemed to have been cleaned up. There were no weeds in the yard, and it was clean. Even the walls made of wooden fences had been refurbished. Only the 3 old houses had not been touched. Qin Sheng did not know who did it. He guessed that it must be the villagers in the village. Yaya was a little surprised and said, "Brother, did you and Grandpa live here before?" Yaya grew up in Canada. What kind of environment was that? She had never seen such a house. So she was very shocked when she learned that Grandpa and brother used to live here. Qin Sheng nodded slightly and said, "It was actually quite good before. It's just that this house has not been lived in for several years, so it looks a little old." Zhao Anji sighed and said, I can understand, old master. It's just that you have suffered a lot. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, Auntie, I don't feel bitter at all. Zhao Anji could imagine what kind of life Qin Sheng lived with old master when he was a child. When he was in Beijing, he was doted on by many people. Whether it was the Qin family or the Zhu family, Qin Sheng was in the palm of their hands, afraid that he would be wronged. However, after coming to Xi'an with old master, he lived a completely different life. She did not know how Qin Sheng got used to it. You silly boy, Zhao Anji said helplessly. Qin Sheng thought of first uncle who became a monk in Wutai Mountain. He asked with concern, Annie, how is first uncle? At the mention of Qin Changxing, Zhao Anji was a little disappointed. She said very impatiently, Let's not talk about him today. This made Qin Sheng somewhat confused. Moreover, he was very curious about first uncle who became a monk. What on earth had he experienced to make first uncle become a monk? After all, first uncle had a wife and children. Chapter 480. Jealous? When Qin Sheng came to the old house with his sister before the spring festival, he did not have the key, so he smashed the lock. He did not know who had cleaned up the old house and changed the key. Qin Sheng, who did not have the key, could only smash the lock again. Yi, who was at the side, was stunned by his violent means. After all, she had never experienced such a situation when she was abroad. Walking into the yard, Qin Sheng showed the auntie and Yaya around the old house that he had lived in for many years and had a lot of feelings for. He did not know who could keep the old house so clean. Qin Sheng became more and more curious. Who on earth was it? After Zhao Anji sighed with emotion, she did not say anything more. She knew that old master's style very well, so she was not surprised that he brought Qin Sheng here to live in seclusion. Yaya was more curious about this place than Zhao Anji. She asked a lot of imaginative questions, which made Qin Sheng laugh uncontrollably. After all, Yaya grew up abroad. When they were about to leave, they happened to run into two familiar uncles in the village. The two uncles had seen Qin Sheng before the spring festival and knew that the grandson of old Master Qin had become rich. Originally, Qin Sheng had been curious about which relative of the Qin family he was. Since he drove two luxury cars back to the old house, the Qin family was really not simple. After seeing Qin Sheng, he understood. I was wondering who this is. It turns out that Qin Sheng is back. After seeing Qin Sheng, the two uncles walked over happily and greeted him. Then, they naturally looked at the two beauties behind Qin Sheng, Zhao, Anji, and Yaya. After all, they rarely saw such women. Qin Sheng gave the two uncles a cigarette and chatted casually for a while. Then he asked, Uncle Lu, I want to ask you something. Do you know who cleaned up our old house? The man called Uncle Lu said in surprise, Hey, Qin Sheng, you didn't know about this? I thought you knew, because the man who repaired the house said he was your friend. My friend? Qin Sheng was even more curious. The two uncles were very puzzled. You don't know? Qin Sheng shook his head and said, I really don't know whether my friend is a man or a woman. A very beautiful woman. Even our village doesn't have such a beautiful woman. The two uncles laughed happily, as if that beautiful woman was their wife. Qin Sheng continued to ask, Do you know her name? It seems that she didn't say that, and we didn't ask. After all, she came here to repair your house, and she's your friend, so we didn't suspect anything. The two uncles said honestly. Otherwise, who would be so bored to repair this old house? Qin Sheng thought that he could get the answer, but he did not expect the result to be like this. He wanted to ask what the beauty looked like, but he gave up in the end. He would know the result sooner or later. In the end, Qin Sheng gave the two uncles a cigarette and asked Hao Lei to take out a few boxes of cigarettes from the trunk and give them to the two uncles. Although the two uncles said that they were being polite, they still took the cigarettes. Qin Sheng smiled and said that he would be in Xi'an for the time being. When he was done with his work, he would come back and have a good chat with everyone. Then, he got in the car and left with his aunt and Yaya. Since his aunt and Yaya had come to Xi'an, as a native of Xi'an, he definitely had to treat them to a meal. Qin Sheng thought that he could also invite Annie Wang and Xin Xin, so that the two families could get together for the first time. So, Qin Sheng asked how late to book a private room in Chong, and number 1, which specialized in Shaanxi cuisine. Although the taste of Chong and number 1 was not the best, the Chinese-style environment was not bad. Then, Qin Sheng called Annie Wang and told her that her aunt and cousin had come to Shiqin to pay their respects to the old master. The two families would have a meal together at noon, and Wang Li gladly agreed. Before this, Qin Sheng had already told Zhao Anji, who knew that Qin Sheng had been raised by this family. Of course, Zhao Anji was happy to meet the benefactor of the Qin family, and she could also thank them in person. Moreover, she knew that Qin Chang'an had been busy and had not met the Lin family, which was a bit impolite of the Qin family. At Chong, and number 1, Qin Sheng arrived first with his aunt and Yaya. Annie Wang and Xin had to wait for a while because of the traffic jam. Zhao Anji asked casually, "Sheng, what are you doing in Xi'an this time? When are you going back to Beijing?" Qin Sheng told Zhao Anji what had happened to Uncle Lin. After hearing it, Zhao Anji frowned slightly and said, "I see. Your father didn't tell me about it. How is it going now? Are there any difficulties? Although your eldest uncle has become a monk, your aunt's family still has some influence." Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Everything is going well. The old man has arranged everything." "That's good." Zhao Anji nodded slightly. After Qin Sheng had just ordered all the dishes, Annie Wang and Xin arrived. Under the guidance of the waiter, they pushed the door open and walked into the private room. Qin Sheng quickly stood up. Of course, Zhao Anji and Yaya knew that they were the Annie Wang and Xin that Qin Sheng had mentioned, so they also stood up. This was the most basic courtesy. Qin Sheng smiled and introduced them. "Auntie, Xin, this is my aunt and sister. They just arrived in Xin today, and it's also their first time here." Zhao Anji was a lady from a respectable family, so she was very skillful in dealing with people. Otherwise, she would not have been able to handle the relationship between several families so well. Moreover, she was very popular in the Chinese circle in Canada, which was well known. Therefore, Zhao Anji walked quickly to Wang Li with a very comfortable smile on her face. She held Wang Li's hand excitedly and said, "Sister, I finally meet you. Sheng has told us everything. I really don't know how to thank you. You are the benefactors of our Qin family." Wang Li's eyes lit up. Zhao Anji was much older than Wang Li. It was just that she took good care of herself. Moreover, in a place like Canada, the air and environment were better, so she looked younger. "Sister, you're too polite. I don't know what to say," Wang Li said a little awkwardly. She could tell from Annie Qin's appearance and temperament that she must be from a respectable family. She had seen this kind of graceful and luxurious woman many times before, so she could tell at a glance. Moreover, she already knew the Qin family's background. Zhao Anji smiled faintly and said, "Sister, our Qin family has let you down. We hope that you can forgive us for some impolite things. Qin Sheng's father is busy with work, and I have been far away in Canada, so I didn't come over earlier to thank you in person. This time, I happened to come back, so I have such a chance." Wang Li replied politely, "Sister, your Qin family has not let us down. We have long regarded Sheng as our family. Everything we have done over the years is what we should do. Moreover, Sheng has also helped us a lot." "I can understand what you mean, but no matter what, the Qin family owes you," Zhao Anji insisted. Of course, she knew what Wang Li meant. The Lin family had raised Qin Sheng for so many years because they liked him. They did not need anyone to thank them, nor did they need anyone to apologize. It was that simple. Wang Li did not like to continue on this topic, so she smiled and said, "Sister, let's not be so formal. As long as Sheng is fine, everything will be fine." "Sister, you're right." Zhao Anji smiled and echoed. Then she looked at Yaya and said, "Yaya, say hello to Auntie." Yaya was very obedient. "Hello, Auntie." Xin was also pulled by Wang Li to greet Zhao Anji. As for Yaya, who was even prettier than her, Xin just nodded slightly. She did not know why, but she did not like Qin Sheng's sudden addition of a sister. Maybe she felt that this sister might steal the love that belonged to her in the future. This made Xin feel a sense of crisis. Although she and Qin Sheng had been together for the longest time, more than 20 years, after all, He was a cousin who was related by blood. If she took it seriously, she would just be an outsider. Therefore, Xin was a little unhappy. This feeling was different from Sheng having a sister. Yaya was 3 years older than Xin, but she looked more innocent than Xin. She did not scheme at all. After sitting down, she took the initiative to chat with Xin. However, Xin seemed to be unwilling to pay attention to Yaya. She brushed her off half-heartedly. Yaya could also feel that Xin did not like her. In the end, she did not ask for a snub. In fact, Yaya and Xin were quite similar. It was just that Yaya was more like the Xin from a few years ago. Since the Lin family's accident, Xin was no longer the carefree girl she used to be. Everything was supported by her parents and brother. She began to consider more practical problems. This was life. It would urge anyone to grow up. Xin chatted with the two elders. However, most of the time, it was Zhao Anji who spoke. Wang Li just listened and smiled. After all, Zhao Anji and Wang Li's level was relatively different. However, Zhao Anji still knew how to control the atmosphere and did not talk about anything out of the scope. This made Wang Li feel more comfortable. At least there was no sense of distance, and she would not have a bad impression of the Qin family. At this time, Yaya whispered in Sheng's ear, "Brother, does Xin not like me?" This made Sheng a little speechless. Seeing Xin staring at them not far away, Sheng knew what was going on. He could only smile and explain, "How is that possible? You are so cute. Who wouldn't like you? Xin is just too tired recently. There are some things you don't know. This is also the reason why I came back to Xian this time. So you have to understand her." "Oh, then I know." Yaya nodded thoughtfully. Then, Yaya resumed her previous attitude and began to take the initiative to chat with Xin. Even though Xin was a little impatient, Yaya was not angry at all. She was indeed kind-hearted. Xin went to the bathroom halfway. Sheng took the initiative to wait at the door. When Xin came out, Sheng deliberately teased her. "What? Is my Xin jealous?" Xin did not deny it. She directly admitted, "Yes, she is jealous. She is your biological sister. I'm not your biological sister. In the future, you will definitely like her more and gradually dislike me." Sheng laughed and said, "Why are you like a child? Silly girl, don't think so much. You're my sister, and Yaya is also my sister. I like both of you very much and will protect you. But when it comes to feelings, we have been together day and night for more than 20 years. Who do you think I like more?" Xin stared at Sheng and asked very seriously, "Really?" Sheng nodded heavily and said, "Silly girl, no matter if you get married or have children in the future, apart from Uncle Lin and Annie Wang, I will definitely be the one who loves you the most. This would not change in my life." Xin was instantly moved by Sheng's words, and her eyes turned red. She directly hugged Sheng and shouted, "Brother, I am sorry." Of course, Sheng knew what she meant when she said she was sorry. He could understand Sheng's feelings. After all, she had grown up with him. Except for him, she had no other siblings. If her only brother was taken away, how could she not be sad? Chapter 481. A car accident. Even Zhao Anji and Wang Li could tell that Xin's so-called hostility towards Yaya was just jealousy. Not to mention Sheng, even Zhao Anji and Wang Li could see it. However, this was just a little fun between children. Naturally, they could not say anything. Moreover, it could be seen that Xin's feelings for Sheng were especially deep. After Sheng and Xin came out, it was obvious that Xin's eyes were a little red. In addition, her attitude was not as cold as before, and she began to take the initiative to chat with Yaya. The two elders knew that Sheng had solved this small conflict. Although it was the first time for the two families to meet, the atmosphere was quite harmonious. With Sheng's help, the women chatted more and more happily. In the end, Yaya actually decided to stay in Xi'an and asked Xin to show her around this ancient capital with thousands of years of history. However, Zhao Anji had a lot of things to do after coming back this time, and she couldn't let Yaya move around freely, so she finally gave up the idea. Moreover, Qin Ran was already on the way back to Beijing. After lunch, they said goodbye. Zhao Anji and Yaya had already booked plane tickets back to Beijing. At the same time, they took the initiative to invite Wang Li and Xin to meet them in Beijing after they finished their work. Qin Sheng personally sent the aunt and Yaya to the airport. On the way, Yaya began to ask Qin Sheng a lot of questions about Xin. Qin Sheng didn't know what Yaya was like when she was working, but he liked her this way in life. Not everyone could be full of hope in this world. At the airport security checkpoint, Zhao Anji took Qin Sheng's hand reluctantly and said, "Sheng, go back to Beijing early after you finish your work. We still have a lot of things to say to you." They hadn't seen each other for more than 20 years. How could a few hours relieve years of yearning? Qin Sheng more or less understood this kind of feeling. It was just like his grandmother in Shanghai, who video called him every day. The old lady had waited for so many years, and Qin Sheng couldn't let go of the past just by accompanying her for a few days. Qin Sheng just remembered that he almost forgot to ask the aunt how long they would stay this time. After all, he didn't know how long it would take for him to finish his work in Xin. After all, there were a lot of things that needed to be done. So he hurriedly said, "Aunt, when are you going back to Canada?" Zhao Anji smiled and said, "This time I may stay a little longer, and there are still a lot of things to deal with. But even if I have to go back to Canada, I will come back after I finish my work." "That's good," Qin Sheng said with a faint smile. At this time, Qin Sheng looked at Yaya. Qin Sheng liked his younger sister very much since their first meeting. She always had a bright smile on her face, and her eyes were full of innocence. Yaya directly hugged Qin Sheng and said, "Brother, I can't bear to leave you." To be honest, it was Yaya's first time meeting Qin Sheng, but it seemed as if they had known each other for many years. This was mainly due to Zhao Anji's education. Zhao Anji could see many things very clearly. No matter how many friends Yaya had, once she was gone, the only ones who could really help Yaya would be the brothers and sisters of the Qin family. Qin Sheng patted Yaya's back gently and said, "Yaya, I will go back to Beijing in a few days. At that time, I will show you around Beijing City." "Okay, then I'll wait for you to come back," Yaya said happily. After sending off the aunt and Yaya, Qin Sheng felt inexplicably a little lost. Perhaps it was a little sad to say goodbye just after reuniting. But Qin Sheng thought about it carefully. He should be happy that he had more and more relatives. After returning to the city, Qin Sheng began to busy himself with business. He tried to deal with Uncle Lin's matter as soon as possible. Because Qin Sheng felt that there were still a lot of things to do, there seemed to be something inexplicably pushing him, telling him that there was not enough time, not enough time. In the Hyatt Hotel, Qin Sheng met Lawyer Zheng from Beijing. He was a famous gold medal lawyer in Beijing and also a partner of the Chang and Group. This time, because of Qin Chang'an's request, he came from Beijing to Xin to deal with this case. Wang Li and Xin were already waiting in a hotel. Qin Sheng specially rented a small conference room in the Hyatt Hotel for Lawyer Zheng's team to work. At the same time, he also hired a professional security team from Lu Changxi to take care of their itinerary, so that there would be no accidents. After seeing Lawyer Zheng, Qin Sheng greeted him very politely. "Lawyer Zheng, you finally came. Thank you for your hard work." Lawyer Zheng had just entered his 40s, but his reputation in the industry was getting bigger and bigger. In the past few years, he had handled many big cases, so Qin Sheng was very confident in him. Lawyer Zheng and his team were all dressed very professionally, wearing glasses that shone brightly, with a kind of vigorous momentum. Lawyer Zheng said very directly, "Little Qin, don't be so polite. Let's talk about the case directly. I still want to understand a lot of specific issues." After Qin Sheng greeted Lawyer Zheng's team, they began to talk about the case. Lawyer Zheng asked very professional questions. Qin Sheng did not know very much about the case in detail, so the rest could only be answered by anyone. 2 hours passed quickly. Lawyer Zheng almost did not stop, and his team was also next to him to record what they needed. After 2 hours of questions and answers, Lawyer Zheng slightly frowned and said, "Little Qin, it seems that you don't know much, so I still have to meet the client and your original defense lawyer. I think they should know more things. I don't know if you can arrange it." Qin Sheng said honestly. Lawyer Zheng, You can see the client tomorrow. I have already made an appointment. As for the original defense lawyer, I have to contact him again. Don't worry. Tomorrow I will accompany you to the High Court to submit the things. And by the way, I will take a look at the case files of that year. Then I will meet the client in the afternoon. You can contact the defense lawyer and inform me. Lawyer Zhang smiled faintly, very professional. Qin Sheng nodded with a smile and listened to Lawyer Zhang's arrangement. After all, everyone had their own specialties. All right, let's call it day. Lawyer Zhang stood up cheerfully and took the initiative to shake hands with Qin Sheng, Wang Li, and the others. Qin Sheng asked Hao Lei to send Annie Wang and Xin back first. At the same time, he asked Annie Wang to contact the original defense lawyer, and then asked Hao Lei to make an appointment with him. Lawyer Zhang asked Qin Sheng to stay, and the two ran to the hotel garden to smoke and chat. Lawyer Zhang threw a cigarette to Qin Sheng and said, "Little Qin, this case is actually not difficult. As long as a lawyer has a little strength, he can win. But the key is the resistance behind it, which is the biggest variable. Before I came to Beijing, I called Master Qin. He said that I can ask you anything, so I have to ask you clearly. Otherwise, no matter how hard I try, it will be in vain, unless you don't mind making the matter bigger. In that case, I naturally have a way to push this case forward, but that is not the result I want." Qin Sheng did not call Lawyer Zhang, but said with a smile, "Uncle Zhang, first of all, I really want to thank you for coming to Xin this time. At least with you here, I will feel more at ease. Secondly, I dare not promise you that there will be no problem, but I will do my best. So, you can do what you need to do, and leave the other things to me. The old man has arranged everything." Lawyer Zhang was a little relieved when he heard this. He said, "That's good. I know what to do." Originally, Qin Sheng wanted to invite Lawyer Zhang's team to dinner in the evening, but Lawyer Zhang politely refused, saying that they had to hurry to sort out the case materials. After all, this was not their only case. After finishing this stage, they would go back to Beijing, contact each other by phone, and come to Xi'an when the court was in session. In the evening, Chang Baji drove Qin Sheng to a government compound on Yintao Road. Qin Sheng had already contacted Chang Baji yesterday. Chang Baji was a friend of the old man. Although they were not close friends, he would still help Qin Sheng with this kind of thing. Regarding Qin Sheng's arrival, this tycoon was also very happy. First of all, the Qin family had planned to increase their investment in Shaanxi, which would bring him the most direct political achievements. Second, he had to give face to the Zhu family, which was the key. There were no outsiders at the family dinner, only this tycoon, his wife, and Qin Sheng. It was all home-cooked dishes. Qin Sheng accompanied the tycoon to drink a bottle of white wine, during which they chatted a lot. Qin Sheng even took the initiative to talk about his grandmother, and so on. Of course, the most important thing was naturally Uncle Lin's case. When Qin Sheng came out of the compound, he was already dizzy, but he was satisfied with the result. Although the tycoon did not absolutely agree, Qin Sheng understood the meaning of his words. However, the tycoon also warned Qin Sheng that this matter should not be too big, let alone cause any disturbance in the public opinion. After all, Xi'an had just become the national central city, and it was also the key city of the One Belt and One Road. From the change of a group of officials in charge of Shaanxi and Xi'an, one could know the importance of this city, which was the national strategy and the overall situation. When he came back, Hao Lei told Qin Sheng that the lawyer who had defended the Lin family had been contacted, and a specific time was waiting for Qin Sheng's instructions. Qin Sheng said that it would be tomorrow night. The next day, Qin Sheng accompanied Lawyer Zhang and Annie Wang to the provincial high court to submit the materials. Lawyer Zhang also consulted the files, and it seemed that there was no resistance from the high court. Qin Sheng could understand this. After all, this case was pushed by the Supreme Court, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. In the afternoon, Qin Sheng accompanied Lawyer Zhang to Uncle Lin's place, but this time he just said hello and left, leaving all the time to Lawyer Zhang and Uncle Lin. In the evening, when it was almost time, Qin Sheng was ready to go to the appointed place to meet the lawyer who had defended the Lin family. However, Hao Lei suddenly received a call from the lawyer, saying that he had something to do, and then hung up in a hurry. When he called again, The lawyer did not answer, which made Qin Sheng very unhappy. Hao Lei was a little annoyed and said, "What should I do?" Qin Sheng squinted his eyes and sneered. Finally, he took action. "I said it would not be so smooth. Brother Lei, directly find someone to bring the lawyer here. If he doesn't take the easy way, he will have to take the hard way." Hao Lei nodded and said, "Okay, I'll do it right now." Chang Baji had already borrowed people from his former boss, in case of any emergency. Chang Baji drove for a few minutes, and Qin Sheng received another call from Xin, who was crying and shouting anxiously on the phone. "Brother, we had a car accident." Chapter 482. Chapter 481 of HISRY How to Respond. Qin Sheng had long known who the Lin family's opponent was and who had framed the Lin family in the past. However, he did not choose to take action directly. Instead, he planned to settle the score with them after Uncle Lin came out. This time, Qin Sheng returned to Xian to deal with Uncle Lin. He knew that he would fight with them sooner or later, so he had been cautious. Even if things went smoothly, Qin Sheng did not believe that these people would be indifferent. After all, they did not know that the Qin family was behind it. When the defense lawyer refused to meet them, Qin Sheng knew that they had started to take action, but he did not care about it. However, when he received a call from Xin saying that they had a car accident, Qin Sheng felt a little guilty because he did not expect that they would be so ruthless. This was a show of strength to Qin Sheng and a naked threat to Qin Sheng and the Lin family. How could Qin Sheng not be angry? If anything happened to Annie Wang and Xin, how could he explain it to Uncle Lin? He would definitely blame himself for the rest of his life. "Lao Qin, what's wrong with you?" Hao Lei patted Qin Sheng lightly and asked, because he heard Xin calling Qin Sheng on the other side of the phone. Qin Sheng came to his senses and quickly asked, "Xin, don't worry. Where are you now?" "I'll go there right away." "We are on the way to Xiujiang Hospital," Xin said with red eyes. Qin Sheng hung up the phone and told Chang Baji, "Lao Chang, hurry up, Xiujiang Hospital." Chang Baji confirmed the location with the GPS and directly rushed to Xiujiang Hospital. At this time, he did not care about anything else, as long as Annie Wang and Xin were fine. It took Chang Baji 20 minutes to get there. Naturally, he ran several red lights and basically took the bus lane, which was naturally not a big deal for Qin Sheng. In the hospital, Qin Sheng finally met Xian. Xian was fine. She only had bruises on her calf and forehead. The doctor had bandaged her wounds. However, Annie Wang, who was driving, seemed to be in a serious condition. She was still in the emergency room. After seeing Qin Sheng, Xin finally found her backbone. She directly hugged Qin Sheng and cried very sadly, "Brother, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I didn't take good care of Mom. It's all my fault." The more Xin cried, the angrier Qin Sheng became. He suppressed his anger and comforted her as he said, "It's okay. Mom will be fine. Don't blame yourself. This has nothing to do with you. I'm here." Not far away, Chang Baji and Hao Lei were a little angry. When Hao Lei saw Xian's leg and forehead were wrapped in bandages, he clenched his teeth and fists in anger. He had the urge to kill the murderer once he found out who it was. After comforting Xian, Qin Sheng did not let his anger get to his head. Instead, he told Hao Lei, "Brother Lei, go to the traffic police station now and figure out what's going on. I'll come to you after I'm done here." Chang Baji stayed behind to protect Qin Sheng and the others. Hao Lei immediately set off for the Xiujiang Traffic Police Brigade because Xian said that the driver who caused the accident abandoned the car and ran away. At that time, she only cared about her mother's safety and did not have the time to pay attention to other things. In the end, with the help of a kind driver who passed by, she sent her mother to the hospital. It could be said to be the most high-end community in Xi'an. At present, the average price of a square meter in Xi'an was only a little more than 10,000 yuan, while Zhongde International No. 9 had reached a high price of 50,000 yuan per square meter. Of course, it cannot be compared with Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. Zhongde International No. 9 was a large flat with a swimming pool on the top floor. It was a pity that there were only a few of them. Moreover, not many people could afford them. After all, there were not so many local tycoons in the western region. In a mansion in Zhongda International Number 9, two men sat opposite each other. A man in his early 30s wearing a short-sleeved shirt and shorts said, "Cousin, are you sure it's okay to do this?" Tan Feng, it's just a small fight. At the very least, we have to let them know whose bottom line they're challenging. Otherwise, there really will be people who think we've reached the point where anyone can bully us, snorted the man Tan Feng called cousin. Tan Feng looked a little impatient. When his little daughter ran out, he shouted directly, "Lu Qing, you can't even take care of a child. What else can you do? You just go shopping every day. Believe it or not, I will go to divorce you tomorrow." The cousin frowned slightly and said discontentedly, "What are you doing? The child is still here. It's just a small matter. Don't mess up." A young woman in yoga clothes walked out from inside. She held her little daughter in her arms and said, "Divorce? Whoever doesn't go will be a grandson. How about it? I will wait for you at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow." After that, the young woman turned around and walked into the master bedroom inside. It was true that every family had its own problems. The Tan family was the biggest enemy of the Lin family. Of course, there were two other allies. The cousin's family was one of them. There was another family that had fallen in this wave. The Tan family also had a hard time. They were involved in some official business deals of the previous generation. Now it was like a hero cutting off an arm to escape. If it weren't for the connections they had accumulated over the years, they would probably be in the same situation as that family. But even so, they were tortured badly. The old master, who had originally started to retreat behind the scenes, could only come out and start to run the Tan family again shamelessly. Tan Feng's cousin was surnamed Zhang Jinlei. Compared to Tan Feng, he was more ruthless. In the past, the Tan family was handled by the old master and his brother. Tan Feng had always been in charge of the company's affairs. Zhang Jinlei had always been involved in the Zhang family's affairs. He had a lot of connections in the gray area, so the Lin family had suffered a lot from him. In terms of running the company, Tan Feng was definitely a few levels higher than Zhang Jinlei. But in terms of scheming, Zhang Jinlei was the real expert. This time, it was Zhang Jinlei's plan to target the Lin family. Tan Feng had no choice but to cooperate. "Cousin, who is that Qin Sheng? He didn't show up when the Lin family was attacked by us. Now it has been so long. Why did he suddenly show up?" Tan Feng was a little confused. Zhang Jinlei had dark circles under his eyes and tattoos on his arms. He was a gangster. Tan Feng didn't like to have contact with his cousin, but his brother was recently not in so the old master left these trivial matters to him. "We investigated before. Qin Sheng is the adopted son of the Lin family. When the Lin family was attacked, he was not in Xian, so we couldn't find out what he was doing. But even if he was there, he wouldn't be a threat. He is just an ordinary young man. But this time, we can't take this matter lightly. I'm afraid that someone behind him is pushing this matter, and the purpose is to use this as an excuse to hit us when we are down," Zhang Jinlei said thoughtfully. This was also what he was most worried about. If someone really wanted to do this, with the status of their two families today, it was really possible that there would be a problem. Tan Feng continued to ask, "Have you found out?" "Not yet. I'm still looking into it. Anyway, my friend in high school said that this time, the other party is not good. First of all, this case was pushed to be retried by the Supreme Court. Think about it. What kind of relationship can get to this point? Secondly, the lawyer that the other party hired is the ace lawyer of the top 4 law firms in Beijing, which shocked the whole high school. Just the lawyer fee alone is not something that the Lin family can afford, so it is not simple behind this." Zhang Jinlei was not stupid. After knowing that the case was reopened, he asked a lot of information. Tan Feng frowned and said, "So, this time we are in danger. Don't worry, it is not that easy to reverse the case. First, they have to go through us. Second, as long as we push, the political and legal system will resist us. Who is willing to be slapped in the face? Once the case is reversed, there must be someone responsible for the case. Who is willing to be blackmailed?" Zhang Jinlei chuckled. It had to be said that his brain was not just ordinarily smart. He could see many things clearly. After thinking about these things, Tan Feng still felt a little worried and said, "Cousin, there will be no problem tonight. right? Don't kill anyone. I'm afraid that then I will get into trouble. Haha, don't worry, I won't make a mistake. They can't find out who did it. This time, it is just a threat to let them know the consequences. If they are reckless, then I will be more ruthless, Zhang Jinlei said, gritting his teeth. Qin Sheng said that they were reckless, and they said that Qin Sheng was reckless. He really didn't know who was bragging and who was full of confidence. Qin Sheng waited anxiously in the hospital. Although he had drunk a little tonight, his mind was still sober. He did not call anyone to complain about this. If he could not even handle such a small matter properly, he might as well go back to Beijing directly. Before Annie Wang came out of the emergency room, Qin Sheng was irritated by the Xuzhang traffic police, because when Hao Lei went to deal with this matter, the attitude of the traffic police was somewhat perfunctory. Qin Sheng directly scolded the person in charge on the phone, and then called Lu Changxi to tell him what happened tonight. Lu Changxi first confirmed that Qin Sheng was fine and immediately arranged it. Sure enough, as soon as Lu Changxi called, the attitude of the traffic police changed immediately. They began to retrieve the surveillance video and contact the Sub-Bureau Public Security. They could always find the driver who hit and ran away. Qin Sheng waited for more than an hour, and Annie Wang was finally sent out of the emergency room. Qin Sheng quickly ran over with Xin Xin. The result given by the doctor was that there was no threat to her life. She just had a moderate concussion and a fracture of her left arm. The rest were some skin injuries. As long as she meditated for a period of time, there would be no serious problems. This made Qin Sheng let out a long sigh of relief. At least there was no danger to her life. Otherwise, he really didn't know what to do. At this moment, Wang Li was in a coma. When Xin saw her thin and weak mother in such a state, she burst into tears. Her cries were heart-wrenching. Qin Sheng did not feel good when he heard it. He could only hug Xin and comfort her. After sending Annie Wang back to the ward and comforting Xin Xin, Qin Sheng began to think about how to respond next. He really felt uncomfortable in his heart if he didn't vent his anger. Chapter 483. How dare he? In the ward of Xuzhang Hospital, so many things suddenly happened. It made Xin Xin, who hadn't graduated from college, a little tired. At this time, she had fallen asleep on the bed, but she still held her mother's hand tightly, not willing to let go. Xin Xin frowned in her sleep, looking a little scared and nervous. Qin Sheng didn't know whether she had a nightmare or something. Qin Sheng felt sorry for her and could only stroke her hair to ease her mood. Then he asked the nurse for a blanket to cover her body. She was not there when the Lin family was in trouble. How did Annie Wang and Xin Xin get through that time? Qin Sheng didn't care whether the car accident was accidental or a conspiracy, but he must catch the driver. He didn't believe that he could run away in today's society. Lu Changxi was powerful. He made a few phone calls, and the branch office immediately set up a special task force to search for the driver with the cooperation of the traffic police. Hao Lei stayed in the branch office. His family had some connections in the municipal political and legal system, so he could help a little. Qin Sheng and Chang Baji didn't leave the hospital. They stayed here in case of any accidents. At dawn, Chang Baji, who hadn't slept all night, went downstairs to buy some breakfast. Qin Sheng didn't sleep all night. It was not that he wasn't sleepy, but he didn't want Annie Wang and Xin Xin to feel safe when they woke up. When Xin Xin woke up, Chang Baji had already bought breakfast. Qin Sheng was not in the mood to eat. He was waiting for Lu Changxi to send someone to protect Annie Wang and Xin Xin. If he couldn't, he planned to ask Nangong to come to Xian. But the old man was busy, so Qin Sheng was embarrassed to ask. "Brother!" Xin Xin opened her eyes in a daze and shouted. Qin Sheng quickly walked over and said, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Uncle Lin was still in prison, and Annie Wang was lying in bed. Qin Sheng was the only backbone of Xin Xin now, so she went to find Qin Sheng as soon as she woke up. It seemed that as long as she saw Qin Sheng by her side, she would not be so helpless. "Brother, how is Mom?" Xin Xin looked at her mother in the bed and asked worriedly. Qin Sheng said faintly, "The doctor said he's fine. He'll be transferred to the intensive care unit later. He'll wake up after the drug wears off. I guess it's about time, so don't worry too much. Okay. After making sure that her mother was fine, Xin nodded her head in a very soft voice. Then, she saw that Qin Sheng's face did not look too good, so she asked with concern, "Brother, did you not sleep the whole night?" Qin Sheng chuckled and shook his head. "I'm not sleepy. After Annie Wong wakes up, I'll send someone to send you home first. You can go back and take some essential daily necessities. You can stay in the intensive care unit these days." "Well, I'll listen to you." Xin hugged Qin Sheng and rested her head on Qin Sheng's chest. She was like a silly child who was acting coquettishly in front of her parents. After breakfast, Annie Wong was sent to the intensive care unit. The bodyguards sent by Lu Changxi had arrived. They carefully selected 2 female bodyguards, which made Qin Sheng quite satisfied. At this time, Annie Wong finally woke up. After waking up, the first thing she asked was where Xin was. Xin hurried over. Both mother and daughter had tears in their eyes. The doctor quickly walked over and told the patient not to let her emotions fluctuate too much. Qin Sheng comforted Annie Wong for a while. He just said that the driver was drunk and ran away, and the police were currently searching for him. He did not say anything else, which was also to avoid Annie Wong being too worried. Qin Sheng accompanied Xin back to Jindi Furong Shurjia, took a bath and changed clothes. After sending Xin back to the hospital, Qin Sheng and Chang Baji went to the hotel to meet Lawyer Zheng. At the same time, they told Lawyer Zheng to be careful. Lawyer Zheng did not take it seriously. He was used to too many storms and had seen all kinds of conspiracies and tricks. If someone really dared to hurt him, it would be challenging the bottom line of the judiciary. With his influence in the legal circle, he would definitely make the other party pay 100 times the price. After finishing these things, Lu Changxi asked Qin Sheng to meet in a tea house, which was opened by Lu Changxi's friend. The environment was relatively classic, and there were beautiful women in Cheongsam playing the zither and making tea. Chang Baji went to pick up Hao Lei. Hao Lei had been watching the branch for a night. After Lu Changxi's pressure, the branch naturally paid special attention to this case. Qin Sheng did not believe that anyone would dare stop him, so he could only use his direct connections. After seeing Qin Sheng, Lu Changxi smiled bitterly and said, "Fortunately, you are fine." Qin Sheng said meaningfully, "I really hope that something will happen to me. Don't say this out of anger. If something happens to you, I will lose my face. At that time, I will really have to fight with them." Lu Changxi took a sip of tea and said in a low voice. Qin Sheng took the tea handed by the beautiful woman in Cheongsam and smelled it. It was high-quality Liuan melon slices. Unfortunately, he was not in the mood to taste tea at this time. He just said, "I did not expect that the other party would be so direct. The moment they came up, they really took me as a soft persimmon." Lu Changxi knew how to enjoy life. He squinted his eyes and listened to the Guzheng music. "Of course, they do not know your background. If they knew, I am afraid that they would directly come to beg for mercy. They would not dare to be so presumptuous. It's better that they do not know. If they know, how boring it will be." Qin Sheng snorted. Since the other party planned to play so ruthlessly, Qin Sheng could only play with them. Lu Changxi said thoughtfully, "Then what are you going to do?" "My adoptive mother's left arm is fractured, and she has a moderate concussion. My sister is also injured. If it were you, Brother Lu, what would you do?" Qin Sheng asked straightforwardly. This question gave Lu Changxi a headache. According to his temper, he would definitely return the favor. But this was not the key point. The key point was that if Qin Sheng took action, he could only back Qin Sheng up. He could not let anything happen to Qin Sheng. Lu Changxi said helplessly, "What can I help you with?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Although I am not sure whether this is done by them, I do not believe that such a coincidence will happen, so I can only take it as they did. Of course, I will not trouble Brother Lu for something that cannot be put on the table, but I still need your help to pressure the system. I can't go to the Provincial Party Committee compound and cry again." Lu Changxi squinted and said, "Have you been to the Provincial Party Committee compound?" There are some things that outsiders did not know, but Lu Changxi naturally knew. After all, the Qin family had many industries in Shaanxi. He naturally knew which tycoons were close to the Qin family. Qin Sheng laughed at himself and said, I went there yesterday evening. On my way back, this happened. Don't you think it is a naked slap in the face? From Qin Sheng's tone, it was obvious that Qin Sheng had gotten the support of that tycoon, which meant that this matter was in the bag. At this time, there was no need for him to hide anymore. So he said, well, tell me, what do you want to do? At that time, the Tan family, the Zhang family, and the Wei family worked together to kill my adoptive father. Now that the Wei family has arrived, the Tan family and the Zhang family are still living comfortably. So this time, of course, it was done by them, Qin Sheng said. He had already found out about these things. The Lin family and the Tan family had business contacts and competition. The Zhang family was the partner of the Lin family. At that time, the three families worked together to develop 2 real estate projects. In the end, the 2 families worked together to kill the Lin family and put Uncle Lin in prison. Lu Changshi said slowly, the Wei family has fallen, and Lao Wei is now in prison. If you want to take revenge, it is relatively easy. The Tan family and the Zhang family seem to be doing well, but in fact, they are in a mess. Leave them to me. Just wait for my news. I trust you, Brother Lu, Qin Sheng said casually. Lu Changshi smiled bitterly and said, no matter what, I have to let you vent your anger. Otherwise, you will definitely have a problem with me. Brother Lu, you are joking, Qin Sheng said with a smile. Lu Changshi shook his head and smiled faintly. Well, don't think about these things. Drink some tea and listen to the zither to calm your mind. Lu Changshi left the tea house after a short time. After all, he had a lot of work to do. He could not spend all his time on Qin Sheng's matter. Qin Sheng was waiting for Chang Baji and Hao Lei to come over. Since he had nothing to do, he struck up a conversation with the beauty playing the zither and said, your technique is very professional. Did you graduate from the music academy? Student from the Xi'an Music Academy. The beauty who played the zither just finished her song and smiled faintly. Qin Sheng said happily, no wonder. You were part-time here? Yes. Art schools are very expensive, so I have to work part-time to earn some pocket money, the beauty replied with a smile. Qin Sheng said, half-jokingly, are there many old men like me who strike up a conversation with you here? Brother, you're not old at all. The beauty was amused by Qin Sheng's words. Although she had been talking about the zither with her head down, she still heard a lot of the conversation between these 2 guests. Although she did not know what they were talking about, she could tell from some key words that these 2 guests were not ordinary people. Qin Sheng said meaningfully, I have a younger sister who is about the same age as you. Her family used to be quite well off. She never had to worry about food or clothing since she was a child. Later, something happened to her family. She happened to go to college. In order to reduce her mother's burden, she secretly worked outside. There were many nouveau riche and second-generation rich people who struck up a conversation with her, but she never touched the bottom line. You know what kind of environment it is in nowadays in college. After I came back, she never told me about these trivial things. Although I gave her a lot of money every month, she still secretly worked outside. I felt sorry for her, but also somewhat gratified. Life will always force you to grow up. But don't do what you shouldn't do, even if it is just a step. Only in this way can you live happily. Brother, I got it. The beauty who played the zither nodded slightly. Qin Sheng laughed and said, I'm just nagging you casually. Don't think I'm annoying. Qin Sheng knew that maybe this beauty would think that he was using another method to hit on her, but Qin Sheng really did not think so. He just thought of Qin Sheng's life in the past few years and felt somewhat uncomfortable. At this time, Chang Baji and Hao Lei finally came over. Hao Lei did not sleep for the whole night. He took a sip of tea and told Qin Sheng about the progress. They had found out who the driver was last night. The car was not his, but a friend's. The preliminary judgment was that the driver was drunk driving. At present, they had obtained enough surveillance videos and were in the process of tracking down the driver. There should be results within today. Sure enough, the speed of solving cases was different when there was pressure from connections. Qin Sheng had asked Chang Baji to make an appointment with the former boss, who was quite influential in Xi'an, and they were going to meet him in a club. When they just walked out of the tea house, three men suddenly came out of a car not far away and directly blocked their way. The man who looked like a fiend snorted at Qin Sheng and said, "Someone asked me to bring you a message. Don't court death." Chapter 484. In the past, if someone had threatened him like this, Qin Sheng would have understood. After all, he was just a nobody. Those big shots could really kill him with a sneeze. For example, when he had just returned to Shanghai, he was involved in Han Guoping's case. In order to protect Han Bing, he had violated the interests of many people. So he had been threatened by those big shots many times. Now, Qin Sheng did not dare to say how powerful he was. But if ordinary people wanted to threaten him, they would have to weigh their own strength. Not everyone dared to say "don't court death" in front of Qin Sheng. For example, these brothers standing in front of him at this moment were not threats but jokes. Qin Sheng did not expect that they would be so unscrupulous to directly threaten him. Who was it that was courting death? Did they really not take him seriously? In fact, it was not their fault. With their ability, they could not find out Qin Sheng's background at all. They could only guess. Maybe it was just a test. Among the three men, the one who took the lead to speak looked more feminine, but from his face and the look in his eyes, one could tell that he was not a good guy. The other two were probably followers, strong men who looked strong enough to scare ordinary people. However, in front of the team of Qin Sheng, Chong Baji, and Hao Lei, even 10 of them were not worth mentioning at all. When these three men appeared, Chong Baji and Hao Lei were already in front of Qin Sheng. As long as these guys dared to do anything, they would definitely regret it. So after Qin Sheng came to himself, he signaled Chong Baji and Hao Lei to leave. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Big brother, can you tell me who asked you to bring a message?" The man in the black shirt snorted coldly and said, "Who did you offend? Don't you have any idea? If you know what's good for you, be obedient and don't make trouble. Be careful of your life." Qin Sheng deliberately teased him and said with grievance, "Big brother, I really don't know who I offended. Can you tell me? Otherwise, your words will scare me to death. I'm afraid I won't be able to eat or sleep. How about I give you some money and you tell me in secret? Playing with me?" The man in the black shirt was not stupid. From Qin Sheng's tone, he could tell that Qin Sheng was deliberately teasing him. So he said with a gloomy face. Qin Sheng let out a long sigh as he said, "You even saw through me. So boring." The man in the black shirt stared at Qin Sheng and said, "It seems that you really want to die." Qin Sheng put away his frivolous smile and said gloomily, "The Tan family or the Zhang family?" After hearing Qin Sheng's words, the man's expression changed slightly. However, he did not say anything. He had a plan in mind as to what he should do. He would definitely not reveal the master behind him. Otherwise, it would be bad if others got hold of him. He just let the other party guess. He had already achieved his goal. "Don't court death." Qin Sheng snorted. "It's hard to say who will court death. You dare to show off in front of me with such despicable methods? Do you really think I have a good temper? Even if you want to threaten me, you should at least find a few ruthless characters. Just a few of you dared to slap a fat man in front of me? You really don't know what's good for you." Qin Sheng was humiliating this man. After all, this man was in the underworld. No matter what, he had a bit of fame. When he heard Qin Sheng's words, he instantly became furious. He pointed at Qin Sheng and said, "Boy, do you dare to say it again?" This man pointed at Qin Sheng angrily. Qin Sheng was not a clay bodhisattva. How could he not be angry when he was threatened and pointed at in the nose? Moreover, because of what happened last night, Qin Sheng had a stomach full of resentment, but nowhere to vent it. So Qin Sheng directly grabbed the man's finger without hesitation and twisted it downwards. The man grimaced in pain. Before he came to his senses, Qin Sheng quickly stepped forward and hit the man's abdomen with his knee. Then, he hit the man's face with his right elbow. Of course, the man was thrown to the ground by Qin Sheng. The whole process only took a few seconds. It was not until then that the two lackeys came back to their senses. They subconsciously rushed toward Qin Sheng, wanting to avenge their big brother. Chong Baji and Hao Lei were not to be trifled with. Each of them went up to them, and the fight was settled in no time. The three men, who had been arrogant just now, all fell to the ground in an instant and groaned in pain. They had completely lost the ability to fight back. Qin Sheng slowly squatted down and said to the man who had been arrogant just now, "I don't care who you are or who ordered you to do this. Go back and tell them that since I, Qin Sheng, dare to come back to take revenge, I am not afraid of any tricks or dirty tricks. I will remember what happened last night. We will deal with each other later." After finishing his words, Qin Sheng ignored these small fries and left with Changbaji and Hao Lei. No matter if it was the Tan family or the Zhang family, they would meet each other soon. At night, Qin Sheng had already made an appointment with Changbaji's former boss at his private club. The former boss did not know Qin Sheng's identity. He was just curious about who could poach Changbaji away from his side. That was why they met. In an old villa in the high-tech zone, the three men who had been beaten up by Qin Sheng and the others were now standing there. They looked battered, and they were submissively reporting to the mastermind behind the scenes who had instructed them. This mastermind was not someone else. He was Zhang Jinlei, who had plotted with Tan Zhen at Zhongda International No. 9 yesterday. Zhang Jinlei's face was a little pale. He snorted and said, "Did he really say that?" "Brother Zhang, why would I lie to you?" That's what he said. "He also beat us up. I can't take it lying down," the man in the black shirt said sullenly. He had thought it was an ordinary task. After all, they had done this kind of thing many times before. Who knew that they had met a tough guy and finally suffered such a big loss? Zhang Jinlei did not doubt what this man had said. He was wondering where this man got his confidence from. At present, all he knew was that this man was the adopted son of the Lin family. He studied in Shanghai and then disappeared for more than 2 years. Later, he returned to Shanghai and had been working hard in the Yangtze River Delta. Zhang Jinlei did not doubt this man's words at all. This time, he suddenly returned to Xi'an and reopened the case of the Lin family, which caught them somewhat unprepared. The boss of the man in the black shirt said impatiently, "All right, you can leave now. You can't even do a little thing. What can you do?" The man in the black shirt suddenly thought of something. He hesitated for a moment and said to Zhang Jinlei, "Brother Zhang, I saw Child Lu there today. Could it be related to him?" Zhang Jinlei was confused and asked, "Which Child Lu?" "Lu Changxi, Child Lu," the man said in a hurry. He wanted to make up for his mistake with this information. Zhang Jinlei was shocked when he heard the news. "Lu Changxi? It's impossible. Lu Changxi is at a high level. How could he be with this guy?" The man confirmed again, "Brother Zhang, I won't lie to you about this. It's true." The boss directly waved his hand to indicate that he could leave. After all, it was related to Lu Changxi. This matter had to be carefully considered. Some people in Xi'an City could not be touched, and the Lu family was definitely one of them. Whoever dared to touch the Lu family was equivalent to seeking death. After the man left, only Zhang Jinlei and the boss were left in the study. The boss was over 50 years old. He was a little fat, but his hair was still relatively thick. He had quite an aura. He could be regarded as the #1 person in Xi'an City. The man smoked and said calmly, "Lazy, if Lu Changxi gets involved, it will be difficult to deal with this thing." Zhang Jinlei laughed and said, "Brother Kai, how could it be possible? Who do you think Lu Changxi is? It is impossible for him to have any connection with this kind of guy. If Lu Changxi knew them, why didn't he help him back then? As long as the Lu family got involved, who dared to hurt Lin Shi?" Brother Kai crossed his legs and knocked on the edge of the table. He said calmly, "That's true, but what are you going to do about it? I think it's better to be safe. You're not sure about that guy's background. Don't make a mistake. Brother Kai, find someone to keep an eye on Lu Changxi. See if they know each other." Zhang Jinlei finally chose to take the risk. In this way, he could avoid any accidents. Brother Kai was stunned when he heard this. Then he stood up and said, "Lazy, this is not a joke. Who do you think Lu Changxi is? If he knows, do you think I can still stay in Xi'an City? What are you afraid of? I just need to keep an eye on him. If anything happens, I will bear the responsibility." Zhang Jinlei said disapprovingly. Besides, Lu Changxi definitely would not think that someone dared to keep an eye on him. Brother Kai smiled helplessly and said, "Well, since I am indebted to the Zhang family, I will take the risk with you. But I have to find some trustworthy people. Otherwise, I can't bear the consequences." After talking about Lu Changxi, the two men continued to talk about Qin Sheng. Brother Kai asked, "Lei Zi, what are you going to do about this case? I heard from my friend in the court that a retrial is inevitable. The other party has hired a famous lawyer in Beijing. You two families are under a lot of pressure." Zhang Jinlei said thoughtfully, "Tan Zhen is too timid. He looks good, but is useless. Old Master Tan can't care about this. He will only show up when there is no other way. So I have to bear the responsibility for now. When Tan Fei comes back in a few days, we can make a long-term plan." "Tan Fei does things better than you," Brother Kai said with a playful look. Zhang Jinlei said happily, "So we have to wait for him to come back. If he's not at the front, how can I play at the back?" Brother Kai pointed at Zhang Jinlei and said with a smile, "You are so cunning, but I still want to give you a piece of advice. You better find a way to find out more about that guy. Although we know that he is very ordinary and is just an adopted son of a Lin family, there are so many things that ordinary people can't do. You see, he has two extraordinary bodyguards around him. He can ask the Supreme Court to reopen the case. He can also hire a famous lawyer in Beijing. He is even more likely to know Lu Changxi. Do you think it's easy?" "I will. I have already sent people to the Yangtze River Delta. As for whether they can find out anything, I don't know," Zhang Jinlei said helplessly. With their ability, it was natural that they were too weak. It was a bit difficult to find out about a role in Shanghai and Hangzhou. Brother Kai suddenly suggested, "If there is no other way, I think you can find that guy directly and talk to him face to face. Ask him what he wants." Chapter 485. Lao Chang's past Lu Changxi's appearance forced Zhang Jinlei to take this matter seriously. He couldn't help but regret his impulsiveness last night. If Lu Changxi really had something to do with Qin Sheng, he would have to take revenge in the future. Zhang Jinlei seemed to be very casual and didn't care about it at all, but he was actually quite worried. Besides, he had received too much information that Qin Sheng was definitely not simple. Otherwise, why would he say that he would go back to Xin to take revenge? Zhang Jinlei was a little upset. It seemed that he had really underestimated his enemy this time. However, Zhang Jinlei still hoped that it was not what he thought. Otherwise, he could only listen to Brother Kai's suggestion and negotiate with Qin Sheng face to face. He wanted to know what Qin Sheng wanted to do, which was no different from giving in. However, Zhang Jinlei didn't want to give in so easily. If Zhang Jinlei knew the level of Qin Sheng's previous opponents, he wouldn't think like this. He would probably directly choose to admit his mistake when Qin Sheng showed up. He left after driving Chang Baji and Qin Sheng to the club of Chang Baji's former boss. He had other important things to deal with. After returning to Xin, he didn't even have time to go home, let alone the blind date that his parents had arranged for him. This club was specially used by Chang Baji's former boss to entertain guests. The security was strict from the moment they entered the door. Even Qin Sheng and Chang Baji had to be checked according to the procedure. After that, an old acquaintance of Chang Baji led them to the meeting room where the boss was. This old acquaintance was the personal assistant of Chang Baji's former boss and also his confidant. However, they didn't have an ambiguous relationship as others had guessed. They just had a tacit understanding. Chang Baji's former boss was a gentleman. Otherwise, he would have lost control of himself a long time ago. After all, not everyone had this kind of self-control. "Lao Chang, long time no see. How are you doing?" The woman, who was almost 40 years old but had an outstanding temperament, chuckled. Her smile was very charming, but not coquettish, which made any man feel comfortable. Because Chang Baji had stood up for this woman in the past, she had always remembered his kindness. There were several times when Chang Baji contradicted the big boss, and it was this woman who put in a good word for Chang Baji in front of the big boss. Chang Baji replied faintly, "Not bad. For people like me, it's the same no matter where I am." The woman's surname was Yuan, and her name was Yuanya. At first, she was a hostess, but she only sold her skills, not her body. Men always like to force women to be prostitutes, and they even liked to make young ladies turn good, especially after drinking. Most of the impulses were just for the sake of the lower half of their bodies. The more a woman sold her skills instead of her body, the more customers would force her into prostitution. It seemed that doing so would give them a sense of conquest, not to mention a beautiful and elegant woman like Yuanya. Therefore, at that time, a big shot had taken a fancy to Yuanya. At that time, the manager wanted Yuanya to get involved, but Yuanya refused no matter what. The manager was so angry that he almost beat Yuanya up. After all, that big shot could not be offended, and he was drunk. In the end, it was Chong Baji who stepped forward and beat up the manager and the big shot. That time, the incident was particularly big. That big shot even paid for the lives of Chong Baji and Yuanya. In the end, it was the big boss who came forward to resolve the matter. From then on, the big boss especially liked to chat with Yuanya. Perhaps it was because it was rare to meet such a girl. Everyone guessed that the big boss might have taken a fancy to Yuanya, and they all thought that Yuanya would not be able to escape. Unexpectedly, the result was not what they had expected. Perhaps those who did not know about it would still guess randomly, but those who knew about it all knew what was going on. It was because from that day on, Yuanya had fallen in love with Chong Baji. However, with Chong Baji's temperament, he had already seen through everything. No matter how hard Yuanya tried, Chong Baji did not agree. Chong Baji did not do it because Yuanya was a hostess. If he really liked her, he would definitely not care about these things. However, what Chong Baji knew was that Yuanya wanted a stable life, and he did not even know what direction his life was going to go. How could he be responsible for Yuanya? Originally, it was easy for a woman to pursue a man. However, in the matter between Chong Baji and Yuanya, even though the big boss took the initiative to pull the strings, Chong Baji did not agree from the beginning to the end, not to mention that Yuanya had taken the initiative to confess her love several times. The story was very beautiful, but the ending was not that the lovers would get married. In the end, Yuanya finally could not wait for Chong Baji and chose to marry a university professor. After all, she was not a goddess who was above the world. As she grew older, she felt more and more pressure from all aspects. Moreover, she really wanted to have a shoulder that she could rely on, but Chong Baji did not give it to her. Since they could not help each other in difficult times, they could only forget about each other in the world. After the marriage, Yuanya took the initiative to leave the nightclub and became the big boss's special assistant, so that she could avoid meeting Chong Baji again. However, Chong Baji had been staying there, still alone. No matter how good the big boss gave him, Chong Baji did not intend to move. Until the old ancestor asked him to go to Shanghai to assist Qin Sheng. This story also came to an end. It seemed that the last time they met was already 2 years ago. Therefore, when old friends met again, even though they did not get together, the beautiful past still remained in their hearts. Yuanya was wearing a white shirt and a black short skirt. Of course, high-heeled shoes and silk stockings were a must. She stayed here most of the time. Apart from working in the company, the big boss basically drank tea and chatted here. Upon hearing Chong Baji's words, Yuanya felt somewhat sorry. She had always wanted to take care of Chong Baji, but it was a pity that Chong Baji did not give her a chance, and she would not have such a chance in the future. Yuanya asked cautiously, "Are you still alone?" Yuanya asked cautiously. There was not much meaning in this sentence. It was just a concern between friends. Chong Baji did not think much about it. He said in a low voice, "Yes, I'm used to being alone." Yuanya said in a low voice, "You are getting older and older. It is time for you to find someone. After all, it is too lonely to be alone." Chong Baji did not respond to her words. It was not that he did not know how love felt, but that was all in the past. Now he had long passed that stage. He was used to being alone, and he was not willing to be a burden to others anymore. No matter how stupid Qinsheng was, he could still understand the implied meaning in their words. It was obvious that this beauty Yuan was interested in Chong Baji, but it seemed that Lao Chong did not get it all. The reception room was on the 3rd floor. There was a red wine room, a cigar room, a tea room, and so on. There was also a study with a lot of books. The big boss often practiced his calligraphy there. It was a pity that his calligraphy skills had not made any progress, let alone reach a higher level. However, the big boss did not intend to make a living by relying on his calligraphy. It was just a hobby. No matter how much others flattered him, he would never give his works to others. He was very clear about his own capabilities. After Yuan Ye led Chang Baji and the others into the reception room, the big boss, who was smoking a cigar on the sofa, stood up happily. From his eyes and smile, one could tell that he did not regard Chang Baji as an outsider, but as a real friend. There was no doubt about this. The former boss of Chang Baji was dressed very simply. He was wearing beige khaki pants, a gray lapel long-sleeved shirt, and a pair of black casual leather shoes that were not eye-catching. The man walked over quickly, directly hugged Chang Baji's shoulder, and said very excitedly, "Lao Chang, you are finally back. After such a long time, you did not contact me. I really thought that you had disappeared." He was already in his 50s, but he looked rosy and energetic. His height and body shape of about 1.8 meters made people feel comfortable. He was not fat at all, nor did he look too thin. The relationship between Chang Baji and this former boss was never that of a boss and a subordinate. They got along with each other like friends. Therefore, Chang Baji's status in that nightclub was somewhat higher than that of the general manager. I don't want to trouble others or disturb others. You know, I've always been like this. But if something really happens, I will definitely not forget my old friends. See, now I am back. After meeting his old friends for many years, Chang Baji was not so cold anymore. He responded very warmly. No matter who it was, there would be a few close friends. This former boss was definitely one of them. I really don't know what to say about you. Fortunately, Yuan Ye did not follow you at that time. Otherwise, she would have suffered a lot. The man deliberately made fun of Yuan Ye. Hearing this, Qinsheng could not help but laugh. As expected, they guessed correctly. There was a story between Lao Chang and this beauty. Chang Baji was not willing to talk about this. After all, he had let Yuan Ye down and made her wait for several years. Therefore, he changed the topic and said, "Brother Fan, this is Qin Sheng, who I told you about. Qin Sheng, this is my former boss and my old friend, Fan Wei, Brother Fan." Qin Sheng took the initiative to reach out and said, "Brother Fan, nice to meet you. I often hear Lao Chang mention you." Brother Fan said very politely, "I have always wanted to know who poached Lao Chang away from me. I did not expect it to be you, young man. In the Yangtze River, the new generation excels the old one." Qin Sheng said happily, "It seems that I have to go to your house and apologize to you another day. Otherwise, you will never be able to let go of this matter." Brother Fan patted Qin Sheng's shoulder gently and said, "I am just kidding. Lao Chang should go out and have a walk. It is a waste of his talent to stay here. I should thank you." Qin Sheng said in a low voice, "Brother Fan, you are too polite." Anyway, Qin Sheng had experienced many big scenes and met big shots at all levels. Now, facing a big shot like Boss Fan, he was very good in both his attitude and sense of propriety. He was not at a disadvantage at all, which made Boss Fan think highly of Qin Sheng. Boss Fan led Qin Sheng and the others to the sofa. At the same time, he asked Yuan Ye to make tea. "Let's not flatter each other. Come, let's sit down and talk." Boss Fan led Qin Sheng and the others to the sofa. At the same time, he asked Yuan Ye to make tea. Boss Fan was more casual. Moreover, at the current stage, he did not have much ambition. Chapter 486. Chapter 486 of HISRY Playing the Tiger's Skin. Qin Sheng majored in philosophy and had a deep understanding of Chinese and Western cultures, especially Chinese classics and history. Moreover, he minored in economics and finance in college. Recently, he had attended a top advanced course in Tsinghua University. Therefore, Qin Sheng had a lot of topics to talk about. He could really talk about anything. This was also the most important reason why Lin Su liked Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng could talk about many topics with Lin Su, such as economics, history, astronomy, geography, technology, and so on. Qin Sheng, who had a lot of knowledge, could really talk about anything. Therefore, Qin Sheng and Boss Fan only had a few cups of tea, and they already regretted not meeting each other earlier. Fan Wei's evaluation of Qin Sheng was getting higher and higher. No wonder Chang Baji chose to follow this young man. Qin Sheng's evaluation of Boss Fan was also not low. This very elegant middle-aged man lived a very casual life. He did not have the hostility and the taste of a nouveau riche that Qin Sheng had imagined. On the contrary, he was more like a knowledgeable university professor. Qin Sheng heard that there was a book collection room here, in which there were many unique books, which Boss Fan had spent a lot of money to collect. After hearing this, Qin Sheng, who liked to read and buy books, could not sit still. He immediately stood up and followed Boss Fan to the book collection room, which surprised Boss Fan. This was the first time he had met such a direct customer. In the library, Qin Sheng was like Granny Lu entering the Grandview Garden. The room, which was more than 100 square meters, was filled with all kinds of books, classified in detail. Qin Sheng could not wait to walk in. He had no time to care about Boss Fan and the others, and he even forgot the purpose of coming here today. This was also the first time Qin Sheng saw a friend collect so many books. When he first heard about the book collection room, he thought it was just a few bookshelves with some best-selling books that could be bought on the market. After all, most successful people nowadays wanted to decorate themselves to be especially cultured. In their study, they had to have a luxurious or simple bookshelf with all kinds of books on it. However, they did not even flip through a few pages of those books. However, Boss Fan was definitely not this type. From his conversation with Boss Fan just now, Qin Sheng knew that Boss Fan was definitely a person who loved books. People who did not like to read would definitely not collect books, and people who did not like to read would definitely not have such a profound and tasteful personality. Reading was the fastest shortcut for a person to make progress. Think about it. You could buy someone else's lifetime experience with just a few dozen yuan or a few dozen yuan. Was there such a cheap deal in the world? Many people tried their best to succeed, but they were not willing to pick up a book. Therefore, the world never mistreated anyone. You could only blame yourself. Half an hour passed quickly. Qin Sheng was still reading those unique books in the library. Yuanya walked over and said in a low voice, "Boss, dinner is ready. What do you think?" Boss Fan waved his hand and said, "Wait a little longer. Let him continue to watch. Let's go out for tea. Don't disturb him." They left the library and continued to drink tea and chat in the living room outside. Without Qin Sheng's presence, Yuanya behaved more casually. After all, she and Chang Baji were old acquaintances. "Lao Chang, why don't you tell me who your new boss is?" Boss Fan said meaningfully. He really could not figure out Qin Sheng's background. Chang Baji said calmly, "Lao Fan, there are some things that I can't tell you. But as long as Qin Sheng asks for your help, no matter how big it is, you just need to say yes." Boss Fan frowned slightly. Of course, he knew what Chang Baji meant. It meant that Qin Sheng's background was very powerful. But there were some doubts that he did not understand. "Lao Chang, you said that he grew up in Xi'an. I more or less know all the famous people in Xi'an. Even if I don't know them, I have seen them. But I have never heard of or seen such a person," Boss Fan said honestly. Before they met, Chang Baji just casually said some things about Qin Sheng. For example, Qin Sheng grew up in Xi and came back this time to take revenge. So he might need his help in some aspects. If it were someone else, Chang Baji would definitely not reveal too much. But after all, it was Lao Fan. Moreover, Qin Sheng took the initiative to talk to Lao Fan. It seemed that they had a good chat today. So Chang Baji whispered, "Although he grew up in Xi'an, he is not from there. Lin Shi is just his adoptive father." "Oh, I see. Then where is he from?" Boss Fan asked curiously. Chang Baji said calmly, "Beijing." Mr. Fan instantly understood what Chang Baji meant. He also understood why Chang Baji had chosen this young man. It turned out that he was a foppish young master from Beijing. Mr. Fan drank his tea thoughtfully. Chang Baji joked, "Why don't you ask what you will get in return for helping him?" Hearing this, Boss Fan could not help laughing. He said calmly, "Lao Chang, it's just a small thing. To put it bluntly, if it is really as I think, Qin Sheng can solve the problem without my help. It may be a little more complicated. Or maybe it is because of you that Qin Sheng is willing to contact me. As long as I have this connection, what else do I need in return? Chang Baji said quietly, Lao Fan, you are still the same old Lao Fan. He will not let you down. After an hour, Qin Sheng finally came out of the library. It was Hao Lei's phone call that woke him up. Only then did he realize that so much time had passed without him noticing. He was the only one left in the library, so he hurriedly walked out. After coming in, Qin Sheng said embarrassedly, I'm really sorry. I didn't pay attention to the time and made you wait for so long. Lao Fan chuckled and said, Qin Sheng, it seems that we are kindred spirits. Nowadays, there are not many young people like you who like to read. Most of them are too impetuous. They're eager for quick results and can't calm down at all. After so many years, the only habit that I still insist on is always carrying a few books with me. As long as I don't read for a few days, I will feel a little nervous. Maybe I'm too confused about the future, so I'm not at ease, Qin Sheng said casually. Yuan, you said at the right time, Boss, dinner is ready. Shall we go over now? Boss Fan stood up and chuckled as he said, Qin Sheng, now that your spiritual world has been enriched, your stomach should be full, right? You can't survive without food. You will feel hungry if you miss a meal. Come on, let's go and eat first. Qin Sheng knew that everyone was waiting for him. He smiled and nodded. Then they moved to the dining room. Dinner was arranged to be authentic Shaanxi cuisine. In fact, there were not many outstanding dishes in Shaanxi cuisine. However, Yuan thought that Qin Sheng grew up in Xi'an and might not have eaten authentic Shaanxi cuisine for a long time. It was a good opportunity for him to enjoy the aftertaste. Qin Sheng did not have any special requirements for food. No matter what kind of cuisine was arranged, the most important thing was to chat. After the dinner started, Qin Sheng and Boss Fan were still chatting. They were still talking about the collection of books. Qin Sheng said that he was very envious of Boss Fan for having such a treasure house. In the future, when he was free, he would build a book collection room and read in it every day to kill time. Boss Fan said happily, This is the life of the old. I am old, so I like quiet. If you really like it, I will give all these books to you when I am old and blind. For a real scholar, books were more important than anything else. They could borrow money or things, but they would never borrow books. Qin Sheng did not know whether Boss Fan was being insincere and polite or regretted not meeting him earlier because they were like-minded. This was a matter for the future. At the end of the dinner, Qin Sheng finally opened his mouth. He chuckled and said, Brother Fan, in fact, I came to see you this time because I need your help. Boss Fan directly interrupted Qin Sheng and said, Qin Sheng, Lao Chang has told me all about you. Not to mention that we had such a good chat today. Based on the relationship between Lao Chang and me, your business is my business. So during this period in Xi'an, if you need any help, just tell me. I will definitely do my best, no matter what kind of god you offend. Qin Sheng was a little surprised, but he still smiled and said, Brother Fan, I have a friend here to help me on the surface. You should have heard of Lu Changxi. I am just afraid that they are full of dirty tricks. I don't want to get involved in these things. It is not that I am afraid of them, but I think it is troublesome. So I hope you can help me solve these troubles. After hearing Qin Sheng's words, Boss Fan smiled and said, I understand what you mean, but he cared more about the name that Qin Sheng mentioned, Lu Changxi. This playboy was not simple in Xi'an. No one dared to offend him. Boss Fan then asked, Qin Sheng, do you know Lu? Qin Sheng said honestly, Our two families have business dealings. He is close to my sister, but he is often bullied by my sister. Qin Sheng knew Lu Changxi's status in Xi'an, so he deliberately mentioned Lu Changxi's name. In this way, Boss Fan would have some understanding of his strength, and then he would really do his best to help him. He could not tell Boss Fan directly that his father was Qin Chang'an, so he could only use Lu Changxi's name. Chapter 487. Never forgive. Everyone knew that there were always levels in this society. Only people of the same status would respect each other. In cross-level communication, someone would definitely be at a disadvantage. The so-called friendliness of those big shots was just a disguise to distance themselves from each other. Only young men who had just entered the society would be deeply grateful. If Qin Sheng was just an ordinary person today, it would be extremely difficult for him to meet Boss Fan, let alone sit in his private club and chat cheerfully with him. Qin Sheng had experienced all these things. When he was still Qin Sheng, all the big shots he met were high and mighty. The overwhelming suppression of strength determined everything. Some of them were arrogant and domineering. Some were low-key and tolerant, and some were approachable. But when it came to the real benefits, they would never care about what nobody thought. Everything would be for their benefit. But now, when Qin Sheng returned to the Qin family, most of the big shots he met, whom he used to think were out of reach, were respectful to him. Even if their background was more powerful than his, they would still be polite and respectful to him. This was the reality. As Qin Sheng said, he asked Boss Fan for help to get rid of those troubles, so that he would not have to do it himself. Moreover, with Boss Fan's help, those demons and monsters would not dare to mess around. However, Boss Fan did not know his background, so he might not do his best. That was why Qin Sheng did this. After meeting Boss Fan, the matter was settled, the meal was eaten, and he saw a lot of unique books, which somewhat eased Qin Sheng's mood. After exchanging contact information with Boss Fan, Qin Sheng and Chang Baji then left. Boss Fan said that if there was anything, he could just tell her directly. Yuanya wanted to find a place to talk with Chang Baji, but Chang Baji did not give her the chance, which made Yuanya somewhat sad. After all, this was the man she used to love. However, Chang Baji thought later that it seemed to be a little too unreasonable to treat Yuanya like this. So he took the initiative to send a short message, saying that he would meet up after he finished his work. After Qin Sheng and Chang Baji left Boss Fan's place, they immediately rushed to the Yinta branch. With the efforts of the branch, the driver of the hit-and-run last night had turned himself in and was now being interrogated. It had to be said that under the pressure of Lu Changxi, the speed of solving the case did not disappoint. On the way to the Yinta branch on Tsuihua Road, Lu Changxi had also called Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng said that he was on his way there. Lu Changxi said that he had already informed a leader and that he could directly look for the leader who was in charge of this case. Hao Lei had already arrived at the branch. Qin Sheng wanted to meet him, so he asked after they met, "How is it now?" Hao Lei said honestly, that guy just turned himself in. He said that he got into a car accident after drinking with his friends last night. He was scared at that time and thought that something big had happened, so he left the car and ran away. The car belonged to his friend. He turned himself in today under pressure. Qin Sheng wanted to light a cigarette, but he thought it was not a suitable place. Finally, he put the cigarette back into his pocket. He frowned and said, "Do you believe what he said?" Hao Lei's face darkened as he said, "This guy looks like a wily old fox." The police said that he went to the police station 3 times. I don't believe him. He must be lying. But the police couldn't get anything out of him, let alone find evidence. "Then I'll let you try," Qin Sheng said with a snort. After chatting for a few minutes, the leader in charge of the case came over and greeted them with a smile. "Are you to Lu's friend?" "Hello, Director Wu. Sorry to trouble you this time," Qin Sheng replied politely. Director Wu, who had a kind look on his face, waved his hand and said, "You are too polite. This is what we should do. But we finally caught this guy. Otherwise, I don't know how to explain to your family members." Qin Sheng said calmly, "Director Wu, can I talk to the drunk driver alone?" Director Wu was a little embarrassed. Qin Sheng continued, "Director Wu, don't worry. I won't act recklessly. I just want to have a good talk with him. It would be best if he could apologize to my family in person." "Okay, I'll tell them about it." Director Wu nodded in the end. After all, he had to respect Lu. In the interrogation room, the 2 policemen who were in charge of interrogating and recording had already left. Qin Sheng walked slowly into the interrogation room. This was not the first time he had come to the police station. After all, he had stayed here when he was in Hangzhou, so he was familiar with this place. The culprit, the drunk driver, was sitting in a chair with his hands handcuffed. When he saw Qin Sheng come in, he looked confused. He did not know Qin Sheng's identity and thought he was a policeman in plain clothes. "I've said what I need to say. You can do whatever you want," the drunk driver said impatiently. Qin Sheng looked at the man, who looked like a gangster and was a little thin. He estimated that he was less than 30 years old. From his attitude, Qin Sheng could guess that this was definitely not a coincidence. The other side had specially asked this guy to do this. Qin Sheng guessed that this guy must have paid them hush money and so on. Do you smoke? Qin Sheng took out a cigarette and asked. The man was a little surprised. Then he shouted in a hurry, "Come on, give me a cigarette. I'm suffocating." Qin Sheng took out a cigarette and put it in his mouth. Then he took the opportunity to light it for him. The man took 2 deep breaths and then breathed out the smoke comfortably. He said happily, "Comfortable, really comfortable. Brother, thank you." In the monitoring room, several policemen looked at Director Wu, who was in charge of this case. Director Wu shook his head and said, "Don't worry. Just cut off this part. This guy has been to the police station 3 times. Do you think there is nothing fishy about this case?" "Chief Wu, why don't we dig deeper?" a policeman asked. Director Wu nodded and said, "If you can dig it out, I'll give you credit." Hearing this, the policeman immediately became energetic. Director Wu thought for a while and said, "Okay, turn off the surveillance here. No matter what happens, don't ask. He knows what he's doing." In the interrogation room, Qin Sheng did not smoke. You just look at the guy smoking there. He smiled faintly and said, "Are you married?" "Yes, or I'll be a bachelor." Perhaps it was because Qin Sheng had given him a cigarette, which made him feel better, that he blurted out. But then he felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, "Why are you asking this? Why are you so nervous?" "I'm just asking casually. Is there anything else you haven't told me?" Qin Sheng smiled faintly. He was more and more sure that there was something wrong with this guy. The man laughed and said, "Don't try to trick me. I've really said what I should say. Besides, I took the initiative to turn myself in. What's the problem?" Qin Sheng pulled a chair and sat in front of the man. Suddenly, without warning, he asked, "How much money did they give you?" 5. The man opened his mouth subconsciously. But as soon as he said 5, he immediately realized what was going on. He quickly shut up and asked, "You are not a policeman. Who are you?" When a man said 5, Qin Sheng knew what was going on. He was extremely angry, but he still restrained his anger and sneered. "Want to know who I am? I don't care who you are. I've said what I should say." The man narrowed his eyes and snorted. Qin Sheng ignored him. He suddenly stood up and stared at the man. The man was more or less scared and asked nervously, "What do you want?" "What do I want? I want F*CKU." Qin Sheng shouted angrily. Then he raised his hand and slapped the man's face. The man was directly knocked to the ground by Qin Sheng. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth in an instant. The cigarette that was stuck in his mouth just now also flew out. The man did not expect that Qin Sheng would dare to hit him. He was directly stunned and dizzy. After he came to his senses, he shouted, "Help! Someone is hitting someone. The police are hitting someone." Chong Baji and the others outside heard the movement inside, including the 2 policemen guarding the door. But Chief Wu had already told them not to care about what was happening inside. It was not convenient for them to go in. In the end, only one of them went to report to Chief Wu. The man was handcuffed to the chair, so he could not get up after falling to the ground for a while. Of course, Qin Sheng would not be polite to this kind of person. He directly stepped on a man's face and said, 50,000 or 500,000. The Tan family, or the Zhang family gave it to you. The man could not speak at all. Qin Sheng did not want to listen to these words at the moment. "Do you know who you hit? My foster mother and sister are in there. Since you dared to take risks for such a small amount of money, I can only let you know what is called the price. You have parents, right? If you are married, you will definitely have a wife. As for whether you have children or not, I will find out soon. Since you dared to hit my family, I will also let you know the pain of losing a family member. Don't think that the Tan family or the Zhang family behind you will help you. They are nothing in my eyes. This time, I came back to China to take revenge on them. A group of B** cheese. Do they really think that I am a soft persimmon? F***CK. Qin Sheng's anger finally exploded. He had been holding it in since last night. Finally, he found a chance to vent. Was Qin Sheng good-tempered? He was indeed good-tempered and could tolerate many things. However, when he saw Annie Wong, who had raised him for more than 20 years, lying in a hospital bed, and saw his beautiful and cute silly sister covered with injuries, Qin Sheng felt worse than anyone else. What was worse was that he was no longer the Qin Sheng of the past and could not protect them. The most important thing was that this accident was man-made. Therefore, no matter who hit them, and no matter who was behind the scenes, Qin Sheng would definitely make them pay the price, and he would never forgive them. As for you, don't think that you are safe in there. Don't worry, I will make arrangements when the time comes. As long as you stay in there for one day, I will let you enjoy a good life. You can live to take money, but I will not let you live to spend money, Qin Sheng said with a sinister smile. After saying this, Qin Sheng moved his foot away from the man's face and then held the chair. After all, this was the branch office, and he could not be too presumptuous. He had to be careful of his image, otherwise it would be difficult for Chief Wu. The slap on a man's face was a little shocking, and the blood at the corner of his mouth had not been wiped off. He stared at Qin Sheng, and at the same time, he was guessing whether Qin Sheng's words were just to scare him, or he really had such a great ability. I don't need you to apologize, nor do I need you to tell me the truth, because it is useless to me. Anyway, I already know who is behind the scenes. Except for the Tan family and the Zhang family, I really can't think of anyone else, so I will not forgive you. You just need to wait for your price. Don't worry, I will not let you wait for long. Qin Sheng smiled a little horribly and wiped off the blood at the corner of the man's mouth. Then, not willing to stay for another half a minute, he turned around and walked out. Chapter 488. I Can't Swallow It. Qin Sheng was not using any psychological tactics this time. He really did not intend to forgive this man who was paid to do things. If an apology worked, what was the use of the law? Because Qin Sheng already knew the answer he wanted. This man's words and attitude had betrayed him. He told Qin Sheng that the Tan family or the Zhang family paid him to cause this car accident. Although the man had already said that he was wrong, Qin Sheng still did not intend to stay. He walked out of the interrogation room directly. The more determined Qin Sheng was, the more panicked the man became, shouting hysterically. Why did this man's psychological defense collapse? First, Qin Sheng dared to beat him here, and no one cared, which meant that Qin Sheng's background was not small. Second, Qin Sheng said that he was going back to Xin to take revenge on the Tan family and the Zhang family. The Tan family and the Zhang family were nothing in front of him, which meant that Qin Sheng's background was much higher than that of the Tan family and the Zhang family. Third, Qin Sheng threatened him so many times, but did not want to know anything from him, such as asking him to tell the truth, which meant that Qin Sheng did not care about it at all. Fourth, Qin Sheng's attitude really scared him. He was more determined and fierce than he thought. So he broke down. He was afraid that Qin Sheng would really vent his anger on his wife and parents. He did not care about the fight between gods, but if something happened to his parents, wife, and children, he would never be able to forgive himself. When Qin Sheng came out, Director Wu happened to rush over. He was afraid that Qin Sheng would make trouble here, and then he would not be able to explain himself. So he hurried over. Are you okay? Director Wu smiled awkwardly. There were two meanings in his words. He gave Qin Sheng so much freedom because of the Lu, but after all, he did not have much contact with Qin Sheng, so he could not guarantee that Qin Sheng would not mess around. Qin Sheng said embarrassedly, I'm sorry to cause trouble, Director Wu. Director Wu first waved to the two subordinates behind him, signaling them to go in and have a look. Then he smiled and said, You're too polite. Chief Wu, he might have something to say. For the following matters, Chief Wu, just follow your procedures. If you encounter any pressure, tell the Lu, Qin Sheng said in a tone that was neither too light nor too heavy. Director Wu did not understand what Qin Sheng meant, but he just smiled and said, I know. Sorry to disturb you, Director Wu. I'll go first. Qin Sheng said goodbye and left with Chang Baji and Hao Lei. On the way back to Tsujiang Hospital, Qin Sheng did not say a word. Hao Lei finally could not help but ask, Lao Qin. Qin Sheng squinted his eyes and gritted his teeth as he said, It doesn't matter whether I know or not. Anyway, I have put the blame on the Tan family and the Zhang family. At that time, I will make them pay with interest. Hale pondered for a while and replied, That's true. How could there be such a coincidence? If it wasn't those be Astra's stars, I really couldn't think of anyone else. Have you found the lawyer? Qin Sheng was disturbed by Annie Wang's car accident, and then he remembered that thing. Hao Lei replied, I'm looking for him. The staff at the law firm said that he hasn't come to work for the past 2 days. The people who were waiting at his house didn't see him either. Since he doesn't abide by the rules, let's not be polite, Qin Sheng said fiercely. Lao Chong, ask Brother Fan to help look for him. As long as he doesn't kill anyone, it's okay. I'll call him later. Chong Baji nodded. Qin Sheng left the hospital in the morning and came back late at night. He had been busy all day. Before he reached Annie Wang's ward, the old lady in Shanghai called. Qin Sheng chatted with the old lady in the garden outside. They talked about family affairs and asked when Qin Sheng would go back to Shanghai. Small Aunt was also at Grandma's place today. Qin Sheng chatted with Small Aunt for a while. Small Aunt complained that Qin Sheng should not neglect his girlfriend, no matter how busy he was. He should at least call her more often. Qin Sheng then knew that his aunt asked Lin Su to have dinner with him. Since he and his sister had left Shanghai, his aunt came to chat with Lin Su for a while. Qin Sheng thought about it and agreed with her. Ever since he left Shanghai, he had been busy. Especially after he arrived in Xi'an, he had been overwhelmed by a lot of things. Indeed, he did not call Lin Su much, let alone WeChat. He did not even have time to look at his phone, so he never replied to her messages. After hanging up the call with his grandmother, Qin Sheng called Lin Su immediately. After a while, Lin Su answered. At this time, Lin Su had returned home. She had just taken a shower and was applying a facial mask. You scare me. I thought it was someone else, Qin Sheng said half-jokingly. Since her aunt had asked her out for a chat and a meal, Lin Su did not work overtime, which was rare for her. She now had a nickname in the company, the hard-working third lady. Every day, she was the first to arrive and the last to leave. Her and Wu Han's work progress was even faster. All the men in the company were ashamed of them. Lin Su, who was lying on the sofa and watching TV, laughed and said, I didn't know you would call me at this time. I thought you were busy. I sent you a message, but you didn't reply. Qin Sheng could tell that Lin Su was a little unhappy. It seemed that he had neglected her. He had no choice but to say, I've been too busy these 2 days. Don't be angry. After I finish my work, I will take you out to relax. It seems that we haven't traveled yet. You just found out that I might have a fake boyfriend, Lin Su said with a smile. In fact, she was not angry. She had been with Qin Sheng for such a long time. As long as they knew each other's feelings, it was enough. She would not bother Qin Sheng with these pretentious things. Qin Sheng said happily, How's work these days? Is my sister still squeezing you a free coolie? If you can't take it, tell her and ask her to change you to an easier job. Work is fine. My sister and Wuhan take good care of me. It's just that I am not used to staying at home alone. I am used to having you by my side, Lin Su said softly. Hearing her words, Qin Sheng felt a little distressed. He really wanted to fly to Lin Su's side now. But obviously, it was not realistic. He could only say, After I finish my work, I will go back to accompany you. Well, where are you? Lin Su was just chatting with Qin Sheng. She just noticed that Qin Sheng seemed to be outside. Qin Sheng said casually, In a hospital garden. Hospital? Why are you in the hospital? Lin Su was a little worried. She was afraid that Qin Sheng would have an accident outside. After all, she and Qin Sheng had experienced those dangers. Qin Sheng came to his senses and almost spilled the beans. He hurriedly explained, I am fine. It's just that Annie Wang is a little sick. These 2 days, she is in the hospital for observation. Don't worry, it's nothing serious. Of course, Qin Sheng did not dare to tell the truth. Otherwise, Lin Su would definitely be very worried. Maybe she would run to Xi'an. It's good that you are fine. Then, take care of Annie Wang. Don't worry about me, Lin Su said lightly. Qin Sheng nodded. After chatting with Lin Su for a while, he let Lin Su go to bed early. Then he stood up and went to the hospital building. This was the largest intensive care unit in Xiujiang Hospital. There were 2 senior nurses accompanying her 24 hours a day. There was also a suite specially prepared for family members to take a shower. Xian was going to live here these days. In the fruit shop outside the hospital, Qin Sheng specially bought some fruits and snacks. When he walked into the ward, Xian was chatting with her mother. Seeing Qin Sheng coming back, she quickly stood up and said, "Brother, you are back." When he was outside, Qin Sheng had already asked the nurse on duty how Annie Wong was today. The nurse said that except for some dizziness and nausea, everything else was fine. She could be discharged in a week. Qin Sheng was relieved. Qin Sheng slowly walked over and touched Xian's hair lovingly. "Are you still not sleepy? If you're sleepy, go to rest. I'll be here tonight." "Brother, you sleep tonight. You didn't sleep last night. You can't go on like this." Xian was very worried. Wang Li was also very embarrassed. "Sheng-er, it's all my fault. I made you worry." Qin Sheng comforted Annie Wang. "Annie, don't say that. No one expected this kind of thing. You have raised me for so many years. As a son, I should be filial to you." Wang Li was a little emotional. "Sheng-er, I'm afraid that you are too tired. Annie, don't think so much. You just need to take care of yourself. I'll take care of the rest." Qin Sheng held Annie Wang's hand and said. Then he wiped off Annie Wang's tears with a tissue. All he could do was to comfort Annie Wang and not let her worry too much. But it was Annie Wang who was really uncomfortable, because she had to bear the torture brought by the illness and the psychological pressure. Qin Sheng was very uncomfortable. Qin Sheng and Xian accompanied Annie Wang and chatted for a while until Annie Wang fell asleep. They walked out of the ward to the living room outside. Qin Sheng sighed. "It seems that you need to take a long leave. Don't worry about the school. I'll ask someone to inform them. As long as Mom recovers soon," Xian said in a low voice. Qin Sheng couldn't help hugging Xian. "Silly girl, don't think about anything. I'll take care of everything. No matter today or in the future, whoever bullies you, I'll make them pay double." "Okay, brother, I know." Xian nestled her head on her brother's head and smiled very happily. Fortunately, she had such a brother. No matter what happened in the future, she would have a strong support. After comforting Xian and coaxing her to rest, Qin Sheng walked out of the ward. After sending Chong Baji and Hao Lei off, he smoked 2 more cigarettes outside. After thinking for a while, he called Lu Changxi and said, "Brother Lu, are you still awake? I just finished with a few friends from other places. I'm on my way back," Lu Changxi said casually. He didn't think that Qin Sheng was in trouble, and the relationship between the 2 families was obvious. Now, he could only accompany Qin Sheng no matter what he wanted. Qin Sheng said honestly, "The drunk driver has confessed. Someone paid him to cause the car accident last night. Brother Lu, I can't take it lying down." Lu Changxi was not surprised by this news. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Most of the coincidences were intentional. So he said in a low voice, "You can't take it lying down? Then how do you want to vent your anger?" "Brother Lu, can you set up a trap with people from the Tan family and the Zhang family?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. He wanted to humiliate the people from the Tan family and the Zhang family so that he could vent his anger. Lu Changxi frowned slightly and thought for a while. Then he said, "There will be an activity of the Provincial Young Entrepreneurs Association tomorrow. After that, there will be a gathering in the evening. You can go with me and leave the rest to me." "Brother Lu, thank you," Qin Sheng said politely. He knew that this kind of thing was not difficult for Lu Changxi. Lu Changxi smiled bitterly. "No need to thank me. Such a big thing happened. It's good that you don't blame me. I just want you to vent your anger. I can do it." Chapter 489. Chapter 489. The WRU think too much after the call. Qin Sheng went back to the ward and slept on the sofa outside for the whole night. To him, as long as there was a place that was neither too cold nor too hot, he could sleep peacefully. He just had to be vigilant. He had been like this during the 2 years when he had been traveling. Thinking of the things he had experienced during his travels, Qin Sheng didn't quite understand his grandfather's meaning at first. It was not until today that he understood his grandfather's good intentions. Life was just like the beautiful scenery in the world. How could he broaden his horizons and broaden his mind without experiencing those great mountains and rivers? How could he resist those open spears and hidden arrows after stepping into society without experiencing those sinister people's hearts? After experiencing it and settling down, he would be able to take every step with confidence. Before he traveled, except for studying in Shanghai and traveling with the Lin family for a few times, Qin Sheng spent almost all his time in Xin. The world was so big. Not to mention going abroad, there were too many beautiful sceneries in the motherland. Oceans, rivers, lakes, mountains, snow mountains, deserts, grasslands. The scenery of each place was different, and the customs of each place were different. There were also those delicious food that made people salivate, and so on. Therefore, Qin Sheng experienced too many things during those 2 years. He met the other half of his life, Lin Su, and also met interesting friends like Han Guoping. Of course, he also encountered all kinds of dangers, such as being chased by the Zhang and Song families. Thinking of the Zhang and Song families, Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Finally, the anger of the two families was completely appeased. He didn't know when he would have such an opportunity to completely let go of everything and go wherever he wanted without any scruples or destination, without contacting anyone. But Qin Sheng knew that such an opportunity might not come again. After all, he didn't have too many things in the past and could let go easily. But now he had too many responsibilities and burdens. It was not easy to let go. In the morning, Qin Sheng got up before dawn. Annie Wang and Xin were still asleep. Qin Sheng left the hospital alone and took a taxi back to Jindi Furong Shurjia to take a bath and change clothes. When he came back for the first time, Annie Wang gave him a key, and that room was always reserved for him. The charm of a city was in the morning and at night. These were two different feelings. The morning of Xi'an, the capital of a millennium, was even more charming. Inadvertently, one would feel like they were back in the Han and Tang dynasties. It was said that Xi'an had been very popular recently and had become a popular city on the internet. Tourists from all over the country came from thousands of miles away to eat, drink, and have fun. Especially the bull wrestling wine in Yongxing Square had become a must-go place when people checked in. Even Han Bing said that she would bring a few of her best friends to Xi'an to play. Qin Sheng said that he would wait until he was done with his work. Otherwise, he would not have time to accompany them. Xi'an was rich in tourism resources. After all, it was the ancient capital of 13 dynasties and a world-famous cultural city. It was just that the previous rulers did not know how to develop and utilize it. Moreover, it was located in the West, and many people's thinking was somewhat backward. The person in charge of the Xujiang group had opened up the tourism scene in Xi'an. His series of operations had made people dumbfounded, and he had also become the benchmark of domestic cultural tourism. Now, the new head began to connect online and offline, and the tourism market in Xi'an was instantly ignited. When he walked to the gate of the community, the security guards greeted Qin Sheng politely. They were all witnesses of the incident before the Spring Festival, and they knew how powerful the son of Annie Wang in the 8th building was. After the incident, Annie Wang specially came to apologize to them. It could be seen that Annie Wang's son was not simple. However, the security guards all knew that he was not in Xi'an most of the time. He only came back a few times a year. What happened last time could be considered to have helped the security guards vent their anger, so they were very concerned about Annie Wang and often helped her with some work. As long as they saw Annie Wang coming back with something, they would take the initiative to send it to her home, which made Annie Wang a little embarrassed. If others respect me, I will return it tenfold. When Qin Sheng entered the door, the security guard asked with a smile, "Brother Qin, why haven't I seen Annie Wang these 2 days?" Of course, Qin Sheng would not say that Annie Wang was hospitalized. He just said casually, "She went out for a trip and will come back in 2 days." Another security guard laughed and said, "Oh, then how many days will you come back this time? We all want to thank you properly." They all knew that Qin Sheng had a good temper, was not arrogant, and was very casual. Qin Sheng took out a cigarette and gave it to the security guards. After that, he replied, I will leave in 2 days, but I will come back a lot recently. I still have some things to deal with. The security guard lit the cigarette and said politely, then you should pay more attention to your health. If anything happens at home, don't treat us as outsiders. Just tell us. Haha, thank you. Qin Sheng patted the security guard's shoulder gently and said happily. Then they chatted for a while and then walked to the number 8 building where they lived. When Qin Sheng returned to the hospital, Chang Baji and Hao Lei were already there. They had specially asked the Hyatt Hotel to prepare breakfast for them. Xin was eating leisurely. When she saw Qin Sheng coming back, she said unhappily, Brother, where have you been? I went home to take a shower and change clothes. You lazy pig, are you up? Qin Sheng said with a smile. Xin made a face at Qin Sheng and then asked, Have you had breakfast? Uncle Chang and brother Lei brought it from the hotel. There's still a lot of it. Come and eat it quickly. Okay. Qin Sheng smiled and sat opposite Xin, eating breakfast. The brother and sister would occasionally tease a few words, as if nothing had happened. The doctor had checked the room. Annie Wang's condition was very stable. She could continue to stay in the hospital for observation. Qin Sheng would accompany lawyer Zhang to the court later. After that, he would go to the procuratorate. Under the attention of the senior in the province, there should be no big problem in the system's resistance. Of course, there would be some villains who did not know the inside story secretly. After all, the Tan family and the Zhang family were not completely useless. However, before Qin Sheng went out, Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao came to the hospital with gifts. After seeing Qin Sheng, Meng Zhe was very unhappy and said, Lao Qin, not only did you not tell us that you returned to Xin, but you did not even tell us that Annie Wang had a car accident and was hospitalized. Are you not treating us as brothers? Zhao Xian also echoed, Lao Qin, if you have not forgiven us for what happened in the past, we have nothing to say. After all, what we did was wrong. But you did not tell us that Annie Wang was hospitalized. This is your fault. We all ate at Annie Wang's place. If we did not come to see Annie Wang, how would we feel? Qin Sheng didn't know how to respond to the several people's words one after another. Finally, Qin Sheng said helplessly, You think too much. It's not that I did not want to contact you. It's just that I just came back and had a series of things to deal with. Originally, I wanted to contact you after I was done with them. Who knew that something like this would happen? Meng Zhe frowned slightly and said, Then at this time, you should have told us so that we could help you. Otherwise, you would have to bear all the burden. How much pressure would you feel? Qin Sheng hurriedly apologized to them. This time I was wrong. I did not think so much. I will treat you to a meal another day. Meng Zhe said disapprovingly, Who needs your meal? We are here to see Annie Wang. Meng Zhe said disapprovingly. Qin Sheng knew that these were, of course, words out of anger. He could only let them walk into the ward. At this time, Xin was chatting with Annie Wang. Seeing so many people coming in, she was somewhat embarrassed. Qin Sheng stayed in the ward for a while and came out. He said to Hao Lei, You said it. Hao Lei was not very confident as he said, I didn't take the initiative to say this. I went to the police station many times in the past 2 days. One of our high school classmates was there. Meng Zhe and the others got the news from there and called me. I had no choice. No wonder, Qin Sheng said calmly. After a while, Meng Zhe and the others came out of the ward. They did not stay for too long in case they disturbed Annie Wang's rest. In the living room outside, Wu Hao said, Lao Qin, I heard that you came back this time for Uncle Lin's matter? Yes, Uncle Lin has raised me for so many years. It's time for me to do something for him. Moreover, he was originally set up, Qin Sheng said honestly, without hiding anything. Wu Hao said thoughtfully, This matter has a lot of obstacles. Are you confident? I dare not say that I'm 90% sure, but I am basically pushing it. After a period of time, the court will hold a retrial, Qin Sheng said in a low voice. Wu Hao, Zhao Xian, and Meng Zhe looked at each other. They knew what kind of person Qin Sheng was. He would never do something he was not confident about. Moreover, it was Uncle Lin's matter, which meant that he was ready. Do you need help? Wu Hao took the initiative to ask. Qin Sheng patted Wu Hao's shoulder gently and said, "Don't be polite with me. I have arranged everything. If you need help, I will not spare you." Wu Hao felt very comfortable when he heard this and said, "That's good. All right, Haozi, we will not disturb Lao Qin. When he is done, we will have a good time with them," Mengzhi said sensibly. After chatting for a while, Qin Sheng saw them out of the hospital. After they got in the car and left, he and Chang Baji left for the provincial high school. Hao went somewhere else. Qin Sheng accompanied Lawyer Zheng to meet the leaders of the provincial high school and a few members of the judicial committee. From their words, Qin Sheng could hear that there was obviously some internal resistance. After all, the relevant personnel who had tried this case that year were still in office. When the time came, they would inevitably have joint responsibility. However, they could not do things according to the rules. Because the provincial leaders and the Supreme Court were watching this case, they could only continue to move forward. So it was quite contradictory. It was the same for the provincial high school. However, the situation was still optimistic. At least Lawyer Zheng and Qin Sheng could get the information they wanted to read. Those who were not involved in the case that year would not make things difficult for them. After finishing these things, the whole day passed. After Qin Sheng and Lawyer Zheng finished eating, he sent them back to the hotel. Lawyer Zheng would go back to Beijing tomorrow. His team would leave 2 people in Xi'an to monitor the progress of the case. The rest would wait for the provincial high school. Chapter 490. You must be happy one. Zhong International was the landmark of Xiujiang South Lake. The first W Hotel in the Northwest under the Starwood Group was about to open here. Xiujiang Rose Garden was also a famous high-rise mansion in Xiujiang. Therefore, Wanzhong International was nicknamed as a supporting facility for the rich in Xiujiang. Tonight, the small circle of young entrepreneurs in the province would gather here. They were all young and promising entrepreneurs in the province. Some started from scratch, some took over the family business, and some returned from abroad to start their own business. Everyone had a different path, but now they were all young people with some achievements. Liu Changxi had already started the meeting. He also sent a WeChat message to Qin Sheng, saying that the 2 young masters of the Tan and Zhang families had arrived and were waiting for him to start the show. He could not wait anymore. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Liu Changxi was really an onlooker. Chang Baji drove Qin Sheng to Wanzhong International. According to Liu Changxi's instructions, he entered through the side door. The meeting was held in the supporting clubhouse. The courtyard was quite large, and all kinds of luxury cars were parked outside. Liu Changxi had personally greeted him and made arrangements. There had been people waiting for Qin Sheng at the door all the time. Consequently, the moment Qin Sheng arrived, a man in a suit and leather shoes walked over quickly and said politely, "You must be Mr. Qin." Qin Sheng nodded slightly. The man in the suit smiled and said, "Hello, Mr. Qin. Mr. Liu asked me to wait for you here. I'll take you in now." "Sorry to bother you," Qin Sheng said casually. He would be so polite to anyone. By now, Qin Sheng had attended such gatherings countless times and was already familiar with them. However, it seemed that most of the time, he would encounter some problems, such as the one at Yuero Manor in Shanghai and the one in Beijing before the Spring Festival. The scene at that time was quite big, and it was also the most top-notch gathering that Qin Sheng had ever attended. However, this time was different. In the past, trouble came to Qin Sheng. This time, Qin Sheng took the initiative to find trouble. He wanted to trample on the Tan and Zhang families' faces in front of everyone, so that they would not be able to raise their heads in the big circle of Xi'an. However, this was not the end. If this was the only way for Qin Sheng to vent his anger, he would be too good-tempered. He wanted to see the Tan family and the Zhang family fall and make them pay for what they had done in the past and what they had done today. Qin Sheng was not in a hurry to find Liu Changxi. He said to the man beside him casually, "You go ahead with your business. I'm going to walk around. I'll go to find Brother Liu later." The young man was in a difficult position. After all, Mr. Liu had asked him to bring this Mr. Qin directly to him. However, after thinking for a while, he nodded and left. He went to look for Mr. Liu so that Mr. Liu would know what was going on. He would not continue to wait blindly. When the time came, he would blame him. Qin Sheng took a glass of champagne from the beautiful waitress and wandered around the yard casually. The greenery in the yard was particularly exquisite. There were flowers and plants everywhere. It happened to be the season of spring when flowers were blooming. The fragrance was really refreshing. After all, it was a high-end mansion. Although it was a small circle gathering of the provincial youth enterprises, there were many friends here. Men and women in twos and threes were drinking and chatting merrily everywhere. All of them were dressed brightly. Although Qin Sheng did not like this kind of occasion, he was used to playing along. After finding a place to sit down, Qin Sheng drank the champagne and looked for the figures of the Tan and Zhang families. He had already gotten the information of these two families. The old master of the Tan family had two sons. The Zhang family was related to them. The Zhang family had two daughters and one son. The ones who were doing well were the eldest son of the Tan family and the youngest son of the Zhang family. However, Qin Sheng did not find the figures of the enemies of the Tan and Zhang families. Instead, he saw a familiar figure. Qin Sheng did not expect to meet her here. She was not a stranger. She was Su Qin, who had returned to Xian. Qin Sheng had been avoiding Su Qin actively and did not tell others about his return to Xian. He did not want Su Qin to know that he was back. In this way, they would not meet. However, he did not expect to meet her. Tonight, Su Qin was dressed very beautifully. She was wearing a white evening dress. Maybe the temperature in Xian was relatively high recently, so most women wore evening dresses. They did not feel cold in this evening. Next to Su Qin was a beauty in a black evening dress. Qin Sheng was not a stranger to her. On the contrary, he was quite familiar with her. She was Zhang Wan, Su Qin's best friend. However, she stayed in Xian later, so Qin Sheng did not see her often. At this moment, the two beauties were walking in Qin Sheng's direction, which gave Qin Sheng a fright. Qin Sheng hurriedly got up and walked to a more remote place. It was not until the two beauties sat down where he had just sat that Qin Sheng felt slightly relieved. There was only one way to enter the club from here. Qin Sheng did not know whether to stay or leave. He had no choice but to hide here for now. Since he knew that Su Qin had left Shanghai and returned to Xian, Qin Sheng felt quite disappointed. How could he not feel disappointed? Because Qin Sheng knew that Su Qin had let go of him. Maybe he really broke her heart. However, Qin Sheng knew that he could not give her anything. It was better to get the pain over with than to prolong it. So he did not intend to contact Su Qin again. At this moment, Qin Sheng did not expect to meet Su Qin here. However, he could understand why Su Qin appeared here. The Lin family had declined, but the Su family's business had been doing very well. It could be said that it was getting bigger and bigger. Uncle Su only had one daughter, Su Qin. He had always wanted Su Qin to come back. However, Su Qin was not willing to come back. She used to wait for Qin Sheng in Shanghai. Of course, she did not want to come back. Later, she knew that Qin Sheng was in Shanghai, so she was even more unwilling to come back. Now, it was also because of Qin Sheng that Su Qin came back to Xian. Naturally, Su Qin entered her own company. With her resume in a foreign enterprise in Shanghai, it was certainly easy for her to enter her own company. Su Qin, are you sure that you came back this time not to heal your injury, but to completely let go of everything and never leave again? Zhang Wan held Su Qin's hand and asked. Thinking that the golden boy and jade girl, who were once envied by everyone, did not end up together, Zhang Wan felt somewhat pitiful. She had been waiting for the day of Su Qin's wedding. Now it seemed that she still had to wait for a long time. Su Qin drank a mouthful of wine and shook her head. I really won't leave. Xian is so nice. I have family and friends. It's too lonely to be alone outside. When I want to cry, I can't find a shoulder to lean on. That's because you don't want to, Zhang Wan said disapprovingly. She knew that Su Qin had always loved Qin Sheng deeply and could not let go of him all the time. So she was not sure whether Su Qin had really let go of him now. However, as for Qin Sheng, Zhang Wan did not have any resentment. She had never said any malicious words to him. After all, she knew that it was Su Qin who had proposed the breakup. At that time, Qin Sheng's grandfather happened to pass away, so they rushed to be together. Since then, She had never contacted Qin Sheng. It seemed that he had completely disappeared. But later, she heard from Su Qin that Qin Sheng had reappeared. Su Qin took off her high-heeled shoes. Maybe it was a little uncomfortable to wear them. She was barefooted, revealing the side of a little girl. She smiled and said, "If you want to talk about him, just talk about him. Don't hide it. After all, you used to have a crush on him." That was in the past. So many years have passed. Now I have a husband and a child. I have long forgotten him. Besides, who didn't have a crush on someone during adolescence? Except for the golden boy and jade girl, Zhang Wan said with a smile. She did not take it seriously at all. She definitely did not expect that the person who used to have a crush on her was standing in the corner not far away from them at this moment. He had heard all of their conversation. If Zhang Wan knew about it, she might not dare to see Qin Sheng in the future. You see, if you can forget him, I will also forget him. It's just a matter of time, Su Qin said faintly. But when she thought that she had lost him, she felt like something had been taken away from her heart. She was filled with a sense of loss. Zhang Wan said doubtfully, "You really let it go?" Su Qin nodded heavily. Then she took a deep breath and revealed an extremely bright smile. She said, "I really let it go. Even if I can't let it go, I will try my best to let it go. There are still many beautiful things waiting for me to enjoy. I will definitely meet a man who I love, and he loves me. I will give birth to a pair of twins. In the future, I will become a hot mother that everyone will envy." Zhang Wan still did not believe it. She sighed and said, "I hope so. Zhang Wan, he doesn't owe me anything. If anything, it is me who owes him. I took the initiative to break up with him. I thought that at that time, he was already sad when his grandfather passed away, and he would be even sadder. Later, when he came back, I knew that no matter how hard I tried, I could not find him, but I still wanted to try. I wanted to make up for my past mistakes. Although there was no result in the end, I tried, and I have no regrets. Because one day, when I, Su Qin, think of him, I will only think of the beautiful memories he left for me. I will think of the fact that I have no regrets, not resentment and regret." Su Qin put the wine glass aside and said happily with a smile. Zhang Wan pouted and said, "You are really generous." Su Qin stood up slowly, raised her head, and shouted sincerely to the bright starry sky, "Qin Sheng, I am going to start a new life. You must be happy. You must be happier than me." However, as she spoke, Su Qin's eyes became blurred. In the corner not far away, the man who had been blessed by her had already burst into tears. "I wish you happiness, but I know that I can no longer give you happiness. So I can only wish you happiness. How I wish that this happiness could be given to you by myself." Chapter 491. Chapter 491 of H.R. with a good show begins. Everyone liked beautiful things and wanted everything to end well. But most of the time, things went against one's wishes, such as love. Everyone had their first love. The first love was also the most beautiful love. Therefore, everyone hoped that the first love could come together in the end. However, the reality was that most of the first love ended in tragedy. Only 1 or 2 out of 10 could succeed. Even the love between Qin Sheng and Su Qin was no exception. No matter how many misunderstandings Qin Sheng and Su Qin had experienced, they finally came to this stage from the enviable immortal couple. But today, Su Qin really chose to let it go. Since she left Shanghai, she had been slowly letting it go. What could she do if she did not? He was torturing himself and others. In the past, she wanted to fight for it. But she felt that she was getting farther and farther away from Qin Sheng. No matter how hard she tried, she could not catch up with him. This kind of inner struggle made her exhausted. She did not know what Qin Sheng was thinking. She did not want to know now. She knew that Qin Sheng already had a girlfriend. She did not want to give Qin Sheng any more pressure. Even if she tried hard, Qin Sheng would eventually hurt a woman. Therefore, she chose to let it go. When Su Qin said with tears, "Qin Sheng, you must be happy," she really let it go and would never bother Qin Sheng in the future. Zhang Wan was a little distressed. She could not help hugging Su Qin and said, "Silly girl, you will be happy too." Some parting could not be seen before they waved. Therefore, some people would say that when parting, one more word, one more look at each other. You would never know whether you would see each other again after this parting. Su Qin smiled. She did not feel uneasy every time she saw Qin Sheng. Instead, she was full of confidence about the future. She believed that even without Qin Sheng, she would be fine, very, very fine. Zhang Wan knew that Su Qin did not like this kind of occasion. She dragged Su Qin here tonight. At this time, Su Qin was in such a mood that she definitely did not want to be disturbed. Therefore, after saying goodbye to her friends, she left with Su Qin. It was not until he was sure that Su Qin and Zhang Wan had left that Qin Sheng came out from the corner. From the beginning to the end, he did not choose to meet Su Qin. He had already wiped away his tears. Looking at Su Qin's back as she left, he said, "Su Qin, you must also be happy." Su Qin had really let it go. Qin Sheng had also really let it go. There was no sense of loss anymore. He felt that as long as Su Qin was fine, he could really be at ease. No matter what happened in the past, he had to choose to let go. Otherwise, it would be selfish and unfair to himself and others. Qin Sheng finally let go. At this time, Lu Changxi took the initiative to call Qin Sheng after waiting for a long time. Only then did Qin Sheng come back to his senses and stop thinking about these things. After all, he had other things to deal with later. "Qin Sheng, where are you? It's been so long and I still haven't seen you," Lu Changxi said with a frown. That man had told him that Qin Sheng had already come in and said that he would take a walk outside for a while. It had been a long time, and he should have finished his walk. Why hadn't Lu Changxi contacted him yet? Lu Changxi then called Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng said calmly, "I met 2 acquaintances, so I was delayed for a while." "Brother Lu, where are you?" "I'm coming." Lu Changxi told Qin Sheng that he was in the billiard room on the 2nd floor of the clubhouse. After that, he hung up the phone. Qin Sheng left the garden and went to the clubhouse on the 2nd floor. On the way, Qin Sheng was somewhat careful. He was not hiding from the Zhang family or the Tan family, but from Su Qin and Zhang Wan. He was afraid that if he met them, he would be embarrassed. Therefore, he tried his best not to run into them. Of course, Qin Sheng did not know that Zhang Wan had already left with Su Qin. He could rest assured. The Tan family and the Zhang family were both here today. Zhang Jinlei came from the Zhang family. Tan Feng, who was close to Zhang Jinlei, was not Tan Zhen. He had just returned to Xi'an. The 2 rich playboys were accompanied by beautiful female companions. Of course, they were not their real wives. At this moment, they were chatting with several friends by the swimming pool on the 1st floor. Lu Changxi was certainly reliable. Even if Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng did not want to come, he had ways to get them to come. They had to give face to some people, unless they did not want to live in Xi'an. Moreover, the 2 families were in decline now. They had to accumulate enough resources to turn the situation around. When Qin Sheng went upstairs, Zhang Jinlei inadvertently saw Qin Sheng's back. Then he frowned slightly. He felt that Qin Sheng looked familiar, but he was not sure. Tan Feng sensed that something was wrong with Zhang Jinlei. He asked, "What's wrong? Did you meet your ex-girlfriend? You're such a playboy. Isn't my ex-girlfriend your ex-girlfriend?" Zhang Jinlei laughed and scolded him. Tan Feng laughed playfully. Of course, this was a joke between them. Even if others heard it, they would not understand it. Compared with his younger brother, Tan Zhen, Tan Feng was a bit wretched. He was not tall and was thin. At first glance, one could tell that he was the kind of person who was more feminine and sophisticated. Therefore, in the Tan family, Tan Zhen was responsible for the affairs of the company, while Tan Feng was mainly responsible for the relationships and resources outside. Therefore, he was more open. "What's wrong with you?" Tan Feng was confused. Zhang Jinlei said, "Honestly, I did meet an acquaintance, the one who has been giving us a headache recently. So I have to make a phone call first to confirm whether it is him or not." Tan Feng understood and said in surprise, "You mean that Qin Sheng?" "Yes." Zhang Jinlei did not say anything more. He left quietly to make a phone call. Tan Feng hoped that it was that guy, so that he could meet him, but he did not know that Qin Sheng also thought so. In the billiard room on the 2nd floor of the club, There were only 7 or 8 men and women. Lu Changxi was playing billiards with several friends. Those who could play with him were of the same level, but they were not as powerful as him. Therefore, Lu Changxi was the core of the group. Everyone was around him, and even his female companions were winking at him. Lu Changxi had already instructed them, so Qin Sheng was directly brought in. Lu Changxi quickly put down the cue and shouted with a smile, "Qin Sheng, do you know how to play billiards? Let's play 2 rounds?" Qin Sheng walked over slowly and said, "A little. Then let's play 1 round." Lu Changxi was in high spirits. Perhaps he had not played for a long time, and today was the right time to enjoy himself. However, his skills were not simple. He had been specially hired by a coach to teach him. He was a professional player in billiards and a semi-professional in snooker. The friend who was playing billiards with Lu Changxi took the initiative to give the cue to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng just smiled and nodded. When the caddy was setting the ball, Lu Changxi pulled Qin Sheng and said, "Let me introduce you to my friend Qin Sheng. He is from Beijing, but grew up in Xi'an. He just came back a few days ago." Lu Changxi casually introduced the other 3 men to Qin Sheng. As for these beauties, of course, they were not in the range of introduction. They were not qualified for Lu Changxi to introduce them. From the moment Qin Sheng entered the door, everyone could see Lu Changxi's attitude. Obviously, the relationship between these two was not simple. Moreover, Qin Sheng was so young. After a round of billiards, Lu Changxi directly cursed. "You are a *king pig to eat the tiger. You only know a little. How can you be so good? You should know that I am a professional player who has won the championship." "Brother Lu, let me play," Qin Sheng said disapprovingly. As long as it was a game of skill, Qin Sheng could play with ease. He was like this when playing anything. He either did not play at all or played to the extreme. He would never be a half-baked person. Lu Changxi continued to laugh and scold. "You must be playing me on purpose. Damn it. If I had known this, I would not have played with you." Qin Sheng's skills were indeed more professional than Lu Changxi's. His posture of holding the cue was standard, his position was incomparably coquettish, the strength of the ball was well controlled, and his defense was even more frightening. He played a lot of good balls that amazed the onlookers. Those beauties screamed everywhere, more or less worshipped him. It was true that there was always a higher mountain. After a round, Lu Changxi stopped playing. He directly threw the cue to his friend. If he continued to play, he would be purely looking for abuse. He was definitely not this kind of person who looked for abuse. Qin Sheng also leaned the cue on the billiards table and followed Lu Changxi to the nearby rest area. Lu Changxi's female companion poured a glass of water for them. At first glance, it was obvious that this female companion was learning to dance. Her figure and temperament were very outstanding. The others were still playing and did not disturb Qin Sheng and Lu Changxi. Lu Changxi drank a mouthful of water and said slowly, "They are all here. When will we start? How are you going to play?" "For others, I may have to spend some effort to set up a trap so that it will be interesting. For them, I don't even have the interest to do that. I will just do it directly," Qin Sheng said with a sneer. Lu Changxi understood what Qin Sheng meant. He laughed and said, "It seems that you're going to force yourself on them. You are really violent." Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, "As for trampling on others, do it as you please. As for whether you are in the right or not, it depends on who your opponent is. They're not qualified." Lu Changxi laughed out loud and said, "There is nothing wrong with what you said. If I did not know that you grew up in Xi'an, I would have thought that you were born and raised in Siju City. You are a standard domineering person, just short of bullying people. It is necessary to be low-key, but sometimes you still have to be high-key. Otherwise, they will not know who is the boss and who is the grandson," Qin Sheng said coldly. Lu Changxi quite liked Qin Sheng's character. He said happily, "All right, it is almost time for you to perform. Finish early and let's go for supper. Later, I will go down with them a cheer for you. You can play however you want. It is up to you today. Brother Lu, I owe you this time. I will return the favor when I return to Beijing," Qin Sheng said sincerely. Lu Changxi said indifferently, "Don't be so polite. Next time when we go to the Sihiyuan, just let me drink some of Master Qin's good wine collection." Everyone knows that Master Qin's wine cellar has all kinds of good wine. It is not a problem. I will send 2 bottles to Xian later. Qin Sheng said conveniently. Lu Changxi laughed out loud and watched Qin Sheng walk out of the billiards room. Chapter 492. Chapter 492 of The PST. A situation got out of control. Lu Changxi did not intend to support Qin Sheng at first. He had always kept a low profile and did not want to get involved in this mess. Even though Qin Sheng had grown up in Xi'an, Qin Sheng, who had returned to the Qin family, came all the way from Beijing and represented the rich playboys of Siju City. If he helped Qin Sheng to deal with the Tan and Zhang families, people would say that he was helping outsiders to bully his own people. Many people would complain about him in the future. However, the Tan and Zhang families had gone too far. If they had ended the case normally, Lu Changxi wouldn't have intervened. But now the Tan and Zhang families didn't play their cards according to the rules, so he had to help Qin Sheng deal with them. Moreover, the 2 families were doomed to disappear. No one cared about their lives. After all, this was a realistic society. Who would want to offend Lu Changxi for them? Unless the Lu family fell. Lu, is this master? After Qin Sheng went downstairs, Lu Changxi's friend handed the cue to his female companion. Seeing Lu Changxi smiling happily, he walked over slowly and asked. Lu Changxi lit a cigarette. Thinking that he had been smoking too much recently, he finally put the cigarette back on the table. His beautiful female companion gave him a very appreciative look. Lu Changxi said happily, "We are from Xi'an, but he is developing his career in Beijing. It's not a bad thing to make friends with him. If you have any difficulties in Beijing in the future, I might help you for my sake. It might be more useful than your bad friends." When Lu Changxi's friend heard this, he knew the weight of the young man just now. If he was an ordinary person, Lu Changxi would not have such an attitude. He made up his mind to have a few more drinks and chat with this man. He was just curious. How could a young man from Xi and be so powerful in Beijing? When Qin Sheng went downstairs, Zhang Jinlei, who was downstairs, had already received the news. He was sure that Qin Sheng had come here, so he was sure that the man's back just now was Qin Sheng. Zhang Jinlei was a little hesitant because he knew that many influential people in Xi'an had come tonight, including Lu Changxi. Could it be that Lu Changxi really knew Qin Sheng? The people who have been watching Lu Changxi and Qin Sheng these days didn't find any contact between Lu Changxi and Qin Sheng. Tan Feng walked over with a smile and said, "Lazy, how is it? Is it really that guy?" "Yes, without a doubt, it's him." Zhang Jinlei frowned. Most of the time, he was still cautious. Moreover, just today, the person who had been paid to do the job that night had completely betrayed Brother Kai. Now the police had found Brother Kai. Brother Kai said that this matter was very troublesome. He had spent a lot of money to clear up a lot of connections, but the police's attitude was still very firm. Now he could only find someone else to cover for him. Tan Feng didn't know a lot of things, so he sneered and said, "This guy really dares to come. Damn it, I'll teach him a lesson later." "Clean up? Tan Feng, don't act recklessly. Lu Changxi is also here tonight. We're still not sure whether they are related or not. If they are, we must have nothing better to do if we dare to make trouble here," Zhang Jinlei said earnestly. He knew that Tan Feng was sometimes impulsive. Tan Feng said disapprovingly, "Lazy, you're being a little too cautious. Don't tell me that we're not sure if they're related. Are we just going to let this kid keep peeing on our heads? We have to test him, right?" "How to test him?" Zhang Jinlei asked. Tan Feng was really a little bit capable sometimes. After all, he had done a lot of bad things, so he had more tricks. Tan Feng laughed and said, "You'll know in a while." At this time, Qin Sheng happened to come down from upstairs. After standing at the top of the stairs for a few seconds, he finally found Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng. Before Qin Sheng took the initiative to find them, Tan Feng's female companion had already walked toward him. Qin Sheng still didn't know how Tan Feng wanted to discuss him. Tan Feng's female companion was a white-collar beauty who had just moved to their company. She was a young married woman who had just been divorced. The young married woman was originally lonely. When Tan Feng the big boss of the company, flirted with her, it was like dry wood meeting a raging fire. She was instantly ignited. From this, it could be seen that there was something wrong with this young married woman's lifestyle. Otherwise, she would not have divorced and moved to another company. Tan Feng's methods of controlling women were not weak. He managed to tame the young woman. He only gave the young woman a few instructions, and the young woman understood what he meant. She did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. Wasn't it just seducing men? This was her ability after all. Anyway, Tan Feng had harmed female employees in the company many times. Because of this, the old master had been angry several times, but Tan Feng couldn't change his bad habits. Fortunately, Tan Feng's wife was a middle school teacher who was more tolerant. Her temper was far less unyielding than his younger brother's wife. Otherwise, they would have broken up long ago. Tan Feng also didn't dare to fool around outside. Qin Sheng took a glass of wine from the waiter and slowly walked into the crowd. Tan Feng's female companion had also quietly walked in front of Qin Sheng. Just when she was about to brush past Qin Sheng, the young married woman very gracefully fell to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng subconsciously held the young married woman. He didn't know who this young married woman was. He was just relying on his instinct. Just when the young married woman was about to start flirting with Qin Sheng according to Tan Feng's instructions, Tan Feng, who had been waiting for a long time, suddenly came out and shouted angrily, "What the hell are you doing? Let go of my girlfriend." This voice instantly attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked in Qin Sheng's direction. At this time, Qin Sheng and the young married woman's posture was very ambiguous. It had to be said that this young married woman was very smart. When she heard Tan Feng shout, she knew that Tan Feng might have changed his mind. She immediately pushed Qin Sheng away and cried pitifully, "You rogue, let go of me." The young married woman pretended to wipe her tears, as if she had really suffered a great grievance. In an instant, Qin Sheng became the target of everyone. Moreover, no one knew Qin Sheng at all, but many people knew Tan Feng. So naturally, everyone despised Qin Sheng. The young married woman became a good person who was taken advantage of, and Tan Feng became a good man who stood up for his girlfriend. It was really a melodramatic farce. When Tan Feng appeared, Qin Sheng instantly understood what was going on. He could not help but curse in his heart. This was really the case of taking the initiative to gain the upper hand. This time, he learned it again. However, it was impossible for him to trample Qin Sheng under his feet with just this little bit of ability. Originally, Qin Sheng came to make trouble for them. He did not expect that they would make a move first. Qin Sheng could not wait for it. Qin Sheng did not seem to take it seriously at all. He held a glass of wine and drank by himself. He looked at Tan Feng's ugly face with a smile and said, "Brother, continue your performance. Friend, give me an explanation. Why did you take advantage of my girlfriend? Otherwise, you will not be able to get away with it." Tan Feng said bluntly and also labeled Qin Sheng as a rogue. The onlookers who did not know the truth were pointing fingers at Qin Sheng at this moment. First, they criticized Qin Sheng, and then they guessed Qin Sheng's motive. Even the person in charge of tonight's party shouted, "Whose friend is this? Come out." Qin Sheng was Lu Changshi's friend. However, Lu Changshi had not appeared on the stage yet. After all, the drama had not reached the climax yet. If Lu Changshi appeared in advance, it would be meaningless. Qin Sheng still ignored Tan Feng. "No matter what you say, I will ignore you." Zhang Jinlei had been waiting for Lu Changshi to appear. It would not take long for Lu Changshi to know that there was trouble down there. At that time, if Lu Changshi did not come down, it would mean that Qin Sheng had nothing to do with Lu Changshi. If Lu Changshi came down, they could say that it was a misunderstanding or directly abandoned Tan Feng's female companion. Tan Feng was really insidious. The person in charge of this party did not want to spoil everyone's mood because of this matter. Of course, he could not allow anyone to act recklessly here. So he asked the young married woman what was going on. The young married woman began to tell a vivid story. She said that when she passed by Qin Sheng, he first touched her, but then immediately tripped her and directly hugged her. Tan Feng added salt and vinegar by the side, as if he was Qin Sheng. Hearing this, Everyone thought that this was too much. Someone actually dared to act like a hooligan at this elite party. Did he not want to live in Xi'an anymore? He did not take them seriously at all. Qin Sheng continued to drink, still saying nothing. Who the hell are you? Who brought you here? If you can't explain this matter clearly, don't blame us for being rude. The person in charge asked very seriously. Tan Feng was proud of himself, while the young married woman was delicate and charming. What a bitch and a dog would last forever. After such a long time, Lu Changxi still did not appear. Zhang Jinlei thought that with such a small movement, Lu Changxi must have known about it. How could he not come down? That meant that Qin Sheng and Lu Changxi had nothing to do with each other, so they thought too much. At this time, Zhang Jinlei stood up unhurriedly and said, "My friend, as long as you say sorry, this matter will be over, and you will not spoil everyone's mood." Tan Feng did not know why Zhang Jinlei said this, but he still agreed. Forget it, forget it. You apologize and leave quickly. I will pretend that nothing happened." Everyone was talking about it again. They had already said that Qin Sheng was useless. TSK, TSK, TSK. They had played the role of the good guy and the bad guy. Anyway, the rest was Qin Sheng's fault. Qin Sheng picked up the wine glass and loosened his hand gently. The wine glass fell to the ground and smashed with a bang. Then Qin Sheng applauded unscrupulously. "Clap, clap, clap. It's really a good show, more wonderful than I thought. I said that even the Tan family appeared. How could the Zhang family not appear? After all, your two families are famous for colluding with each other. After waiting for so long, you finally showed up." Qin Sheng stared at Zhang Jinlei and said sarcastically, "Using a bitch to disgust me. Only you two idiots could come up with such a trick." Zhang Jinlei, "Tan Feng, you did not let me down." Qin Sheng's words were very explicit. The others were a little confused, but they roughly understood what he meant. That was Zhang Jinlei and Tan Feng had a grudge against this man, so they deliberately set him up. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Zhang Jinlei pretended to be confused, but he suddenly lost confidence in his heart. He did not know what was going on. Maybe the man in front of him was too confident. Tan Feng seemed to have been exposed. He said angrily, "I don't have Asterisk King know you. Apologize to me now." Qin Sheng walked slowly toward Tan Feng. Tan Feng had a bad temper, so he had no intention of backing down. He stared at Qin Sheng angrily, as if he would eat Qin Sheng if he did not apologize. "Apologize?" Qin Sheng snorted. "You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.